He's the guy I'd always want to meet.
Oh, absolutely. Right. Ken's great. Ken is absolutely great. All right. Um, should be able to pick up. I haven't used StreamYard in so long, so hopefully we'll just wait for people to come in. So, so you're 9 hours over there ahead. Wow. So
Yeah,
evening.
right now right now it's 7 o'clock.
Okay. Good. 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 So good week for you, I hope.
It is. It was a good week. It was a solid week. It was our first full week of school. The first week was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then we had Monday off because of Pakistan Day. Then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this week was the first full week, and oh, was I feeling it today?
I'll
Woo!
bet. I'll bet. So
So
what
go ahead.
grade levels? What grade levels do you teach?
Pre-K through 5, but when they say pre-K at our school, usually that's year before kindergarten. We're talking about nursery. Oh my
Oh
god.
man.
Oh. Yeah. Um all the kids seem to act like Lou Pinella when they're mad.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
funny.
and throwing bases and stuff like that. I'm like, "Oh,
I don't think I
okay."
can ever think of Lou Pinella in the same way again. Hey, Bernie's joining us already. Good morning, Bernie. Bernie. We have Chris on already. Look at that. We're actually early. So Chris, I even set my alarm to make sure I was up. Um, I don't go to work till 2:30 this afternoon, but I wanted to make sure we get in at least an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Oh,
Just
thank you.
yeah, man, it really is. So hopefully Bernie can hear me. I don't know. He's just kind of like good morning. I don't know. Maybe it's early. Actually, it's very early for Bernie. It's what 7 a.m. where he is. There's big clue. He says this will be child's play for Christopher. Oh no, this is going to be Christopher's show. Are you kidding me? So yeah, big clue. This isn't like a 60 minutes interview or something. And yeah, not going to be
60
putting up any.
minutes.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Chris.
I'll be like 60 minutes. I'll be like, "Oh no, I did not take that money out of the bank account."
Well,
No,
we
I
might
didn't.
we might have to do a mugshot for you though. I mean, that seems to
Oh,
be the thing now, right? Mugshot.
yeah, I'll do the look of death now.
The
I'll do
look
the
of death.
like that. You'll just
Oh
take a
man.
picture of me at work when I'm dealing with those 2-year-olds.
Oh
Like that.
man. So I have to ask you, because you're in
Sure.
Pakistan, and of course, there's no love lost at all between Pakistan and India. But what was the reaction generally? Do you think in Pakistan with India landing a spacecraft on the moon? Was it positive, negative? What?
We'll have
Any
to
sense?
Yeah, a little bit of sense. First of all, we prefer to call them the Guardians. So let's now the country next to us is now the Guardians. So a little baseball joke
Uh huh.
that the Pakistani people really love because I'm like, hey, what about blah blah blah? Because Lahore, people don't realize Lahore is the border city. It's a very big city, and when Pakistan and India were all one, Lahore was the capital and it wasn't New Delhi and Lahore. So Lahore is a very strong Indian influence.
Okay.
Um, they interviewed a Pakistani guy. I was talking to one of the teachers today who's Pakistani, and she goes, oh, it was very interesting what this one guy said. He goes, you know what? We are already living on the moon here in Pakistan. He goes, do you have drinking water on the moon that you could just go? No, oh, we don't have drinking water here. Are you able to live on the moon without spending a fortune? No, well, you can't do that here. Blah blah blah, like that. So they're very blasé to it. The whole thing about the moon because it's all about their own country. It's all
Right.
about improving their own and the political situation. I won't go into anything because
I
two
understand.
things. One, it's really it's not my country, so there's years and years and years of people saying yes and no. It's like if somebody just turned on the news and tried to comment about Canada, the United States, and they go, "Whoa, they blah blah blah." Well, we don't know. They don't know. Same thing here. It's like I respectfully just say, "Hey, it's your issues. You're gonna iron it out how you do." But one of the things here that they do face is inflation, very very
Right.
big.
Sure.
So it
Sure.
was 212 to 1 rupees to the dollar when I came here, and
Hmm.
now it's over 300. So that's
Oof.
35, 36% increase in
Ouch.
everything. Imagine going to McDonald's and buying a $16 cheeseburger, and that's
Oh,
exactly what it is. Oh, it's
oh man.
exactly what it is. Oh, it can be tough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So
Looks.
they have riots and protests every so often. So I'm like, oh, there we go. Go ahead.
There we go. So Big Clue is here.
Oh,
So,
good.
all right. Well, we'll get this started. And if the other slackers and ne'er do wells can't get their asses out of bed, tough shit. So, dude,
I'm
this is
barely out
truly.
of bed, and it's 7 at night here.
It's 7 at night. Yeah, it was. I mean, as a musician, I totally understand that. Um, so anyhow, this is going to be basically just a lot of just fun, letting you like, that epic sort of rant that you did that we at the end of one of your broadcasts a few weeks ago. Just
Oh
feel
yeah.
free, man. Just have some fun. You want to tell some tales, whatever. Yeah, a couple questions just to get things warmed up since we all share this. We're all a bunch of geeks and share this passion of gaming, and particularly, I mean, on my channel, baseball gaming, but in the larger community here, kind of sports gaming. So I know that like you like most of the others here do other games other sports as well. So please, man, anything you want to talk about, I'm even permitting f-ball talk today, and you can even actually call it by its real name, Chris. So there you go.
The
You're from the Pittsburgh,
foosball.
right?
Yeah, the
You're
foosball.
you're from the Pittsburgh area. I lived and worked in the Pittsburgh area as a sleight of hand artist and magic demonstrator, and some other nefarious activities in the Burgh. I love it. It's as much in my blood as Ireland is, and it's just awesome. So just a couple things. So what was the first sports game you ever played? Whether it's cards and dice or digital, where'd you get started?
The first ever sports game. I remember the first ever sports thing I watched on TV.
Okay.
We were living in Jersey. It was 2000. This has one of the most unbelievable stories. My whole life, I got to be on friggin' TV. I have to be on TV because when I tell you these stories, you go, no way. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah, here's kind of like proof. And then you're like, holy Jesus. And I'm like, oh my God, yeah. It's so my first ever sports game I watched. I remember this. It was BC and Toronto. It was Canadian F ball.
Okay.
And I remember when I was a kid, I didn't really know what sports were because I was 8, 9 years old and my whole family wasn't into sports. So I turn on what was it was called Prime Sports New York, a sports channel. Sports
Right.
channel New York. It had the red on top, blue on the bottom, with the white sports channel in the middle. Well, I loved it in the mornings because when you turned it on, it just showed box scores. And I was just getting into baseball. I'm like, oh, how's the Phillies doing? So no highlights, just like box scores. I'm like, wow, okay. I started getting into games. But I remember because it was 24-23 and there was a controversy. It took 10 minutes. If you kick off and you touch a ball and it goes through the end zone, you get a point. Touchback, blah, 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 weird rules. So I was a referee for 12 years. I was trying to make it. I was a substitute teacher, trying to make it, trying to be too much of a homebody. So I did a game at Eden Christian Academy, which is near Wexford.
Uh-huh.
It's right off of 79.
I know exactly where
And
that is.
so I did the girls' varsity game, and then the guys' varsity was afterwards. So I went out, I changed, and I watched my, two other people I knew do the game. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sitting on the side, and there's this guy, and he had a BC Lions shirt, a real like a Letterman jacket. So I start talking to him, and I go, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "Oh, I'm seeing my granddaughter plays." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And I start talking to the guy. Then I swear to God, this is true. My hand is right up. I don't know how to show it. So anyway, I start talking to this guy, and blah 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 blah. And he goes, "Here, let me show you something." He opens his coat. I'm like, "Oh God, he's a flasher." And then I'm like, "Oh no." So I'm like, "Oh shit, he's a flash." Oh
Oh
God.
no.
No, so he pulls out this black bag and it's velvet. He opens it up and I see a 1994 BC Lion Grey Cup championship ring.
Hmm.
And I go, "Oh my God." I go, "Oh my God, do you mind if I hold it?" And he goes, "Yes." We start laughing. I go, "Wow, you kind of trust me." He goes, looking at me, he goes, "I know I can catch you if you run." I'm like, "All right, that's good. You're right." So I looked at it and I go, hey, he goes, what? I go, what's your name? And he goes, Dave Ritchie. And I go, Dave Ritchie. He goes, yes, I was a coach for BC in that game. And I'm thinking, really? Really? I'm like, so I ask him, I go, why are you here? He goes, my wife's from Pittsburgh and her daughter's playing in that game. So I said, all right. So I'm like thinking, all right. We start talking. Turns out he was the coach for, it wasn't BC, it was Toronto and Winnipeg. He was a coach of Winnipeg whenever that game happened. So he was in the first ever sporting event I've ever watched. I went
Wow.
home, and back then it was Wikipedia before Google. So I
Right.
Wikipedia his name, and there he is. I'm like, oh my God. I went on YouTube, and there he is in the Western Final against Calgary, where they won it no time on the clock, just as he said. And he looked exactly the same, like, oh my God.
How
3
cool is
weeks
that?
later in the mail, I get this thing. Um, I get this thing in the mail, a small package from him. He had autographed 2 cards for me, and he had sent me a Grey Cup patch from 1994 that people put on their uniforms, and he autographed it to me. I'm like, oh my God. And then he gave me his email address. So I emailed him for about 2 or 3 years.
Uh-huh.
And I said, hey, have Merry Christmas, stuff like that. He was coaching in Switzerland
Oh,
in like a
wow.
in a F-ball league in Europe. I'm like, they even have that in Europe? But his name is Dave Ritchie. And I'm like, oh my God. But that was my story of the first ever sporting event I've ever in my life, like ever watched when I was a kid. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden I meet the guy that was a head coach for Winnipeg in
That
that.
is
And
so cool.
I'm like, oh my God. And I went home and I remember that. And I still have his email in my other, I think it's my other email address off Yahoo, because I had to change it because I was a huge Russian hockey fan.
Okay.
So my old email address was CCCP14 Tridiac. And when I would email school districts looking
Uh-huh.
for jobs,
Oh my
it would
god,
be
that email.
CCCP14 Tridiac.
Oh, jeez.
An
That's
umpire that
funny.
I knew, Snakebite, he worked for a school district. He just passed away last summer. But he looked at me and goes, Chris, you got to change that. He goes, nobody's going to hire you, even if you're the best in the world, because then they got to say, why did you hire somebody with CCCP 14 Tridiac in it?
Oh
And so
my
I just
god.
made it normal what I have now. I said, all right, business like, got to make
Business
my
like,
business
yeah,
like.
I know.
Oh, that was crazy. But I know, see, you're going to get a lot of this tonight. You're going to get a lot of crazy long answers to simple freaking questions.
That's fine, man. That's actually what I love. So,
Good.
people would just say, "Yep, yep." So it was, yeah, I played Strat, and it's like, yeah. So no, this is great. I love it. I love it. And what an amazing story that is. That is really cool.
It was shocking because I'm like, what the hell are you doing here in Pittsburgh? You're the 10th winningest coach all time in Canadian football.
Yeah,
And you're
right.
here in freaking Pittsburgh. What the hell? Oh, my granddaughter's playing. And
Uh
I said, can't your granddaughter play in Miami? And he's
huh.
like, no, my wife's family's from around here. I'm going to be around here. I refuse. It was funny because Moon High School.
Yes, I do.
Moon High School.
Yep.
So whenever their one coach, the guy with the old guy with the glasses, he said, no, I'm done. Whenever he said, I'm done, Dave Ritchie, the 10th all-time winningest coach in CFL history, applied for that position and was turned down for Moon High School because Dave told me, he goes, I want to be coach at Moon High School. He goes, I want to be there 10 years. They
Why
looked
would
at
they
me and
turn
said,
somebody like that down? Oh my God,
they
that's
they said
amazing.
he was overqualified.
Well, okay, that kind of makes sense. I mean,
He played college basketball in 1961 at University of Cincinnati. Guess who his teammate was?
I have no idea. Go ahead.
The Big O, Oscar Robertson.
Wow.
Um, and I'm like, really? I'm like, oh my God. But that was back in the day when you had 20, 30 on a basketball team and, you brought them all in and everybody was just crazy. College basketball, the Wild West days back then. back when like only like 12 teams made the NCAA tournament.
Uh-huh.
Today it's like 60, 68. But back then, so Day, he was a good guy. Now, by talking to you, I'm thinking to myself, I should right now after we're done send an email and say, guess where I am right now. See if
Oh
he can.
yeah.
Hey, guess where I am right now. He was a good guy. Yeah, he was turned down by Boone High School. I think one of the things is whenever you're like that, people do get jealous a lot. Um, People will see a Canadian football person and they'll see the credentials and get worried. Is this guy going to come in and actually run the school? What if this
Mhm.
guy comes in, does a good job, and he wants my AD job? You know, like that.
Right. Yeah.
And
That, I mean, it
I
makes
think,
sense. It makes
yeah, I
sense.
think people get scared, and that's the one thing. One of the best, like when I talk about old high school coaches and stuff like that, that's one thing that happened with Bob Palco. Bob Palco, West Allegheny, became really good, and then he hit. It's like his expiration date. And that's the one thing everybody has, no matter what job you have, where you're at. I'm gonna have mine. We all have our expiration dates.
Sure.
Well, he hit his in West Allegheny because he won all those championships. He never lost a championship game, all that. Then he went to Mount Lebanon, but he only could go to Mount Lebanon because when you get really good, everybody else gets scared of you. What if you come in and start talking about how the AD isn't doing a good job and all that? They might lose their job by
Sure.
hiring that guy.
Right.
So they
Right.
get
Right.
worried. He could only go to Mount Lebanon where the guy was like, yeah, I'm good in my position. I ain't going anywhere, you know. And so that's unique. That's unique. Sorry for going on a tangent. We're 16 minutes in, and there's a lot of f ball chat. A
That's
lot
all
of f
right.
ball.
It's all good. And like I said, you can even refer to it by its proper name. You get a pass today, or
Oh,
anybody I'm
thank you.
talking to on the mic, you get a pass. You don't have to call it f ball. I'll still
It's
call it f
go
ball,
ahead.
but you don't have to.
Yeah, it's you're gonna love. One thing I want to say in the very beginning is
Sure.
this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I'm gonna finish the Little League tournament. I
I
did the group
love that,
stage.
man. I love it. Oh my god, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, I have, and I'm gonna just tease this to you.
Sure.
I have a brand new, I have a brand new sort of I have a brand new project. I'm gonna name it after you. It's
Uh-oh.
baseball.
Okay,
It's
yay.
realistic baseball.
Uh-oh.
You're gonna see it and be absolutely floored by it.
I was already floored by the little league thing, man.
You're going to be floored by this. You're going to look at this and go, oh my God. And I'm only doing 1 week of it. It's going to be a 1 week project. And all I'm going to say is this project is reproducing a 2010 championship replay. That's it. That's all the clue I'm giving you. No offense to
Oh,
Big Clue.
man.
But
Oh,
that's
we
it.
don't mind. So one of the rules in the channel here
Okay.
is that we don't mind offending Big Clue. It's absolutely, in fact,
Oh,
it's encouraged. It's encouraged because he goes to everybody's channel, including this one, and he is mayhem. He is Mr. Mayhem, and so please feel free, feel free.
well, I think one of his teams in the Creators Cup is in I think it was Big Clue's 86 Mets, maybe, that's in the Final Four. And I'm going to wait till Monday to start that because I have a weekend project, my F ball. I only do that once a week.
Right.
Another person actually modded every single player, sent them to me and said, hey, can you run this on a league on your channel? And I said, absolutely. Yeah. So what I do is I simulate every single game, all 244 of them. Not only show about 3 a week, but I move my computer downstairs so I can simulate, eat dinner, just hit a button rather than climbing up Mount Everest in this mausoleum that the school put us in. Now I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Sure, sure, sure.
But think about playing mini golf in the Houston Astrodome. Okay. That's exactly what it's like. It's like
Oh,
that
wow.
old Oiler logo in the middle. That's all I live in. I got an Astrodome. I love it. The cats love it. The cats disappear. I don't see them all day. I'm at home and they just leave. They stay in the house somewhere.
Oh my god,
Little
that's
orange and
hilarious.
white. I love the tigers because I have one cat that looks like one of these tigers.
Oh, cool.
Um, yeah, its name is Pishu, and that's Pashtun for cat. One of the
Okay.
people left to Fiji, and this is where things get no holds barred. Fiji, they have a problem with
Okay.
mongoose. So
Right.
what happened was they brought them in to kill the snakes. They killed all the snakes. Now they're eating all the cats.
Oh, geez.
So yeah, they couldn't bring their cat Pishu to Fiji. So they said, "Hey, can you take Pichu?" And Pichu's a 3-year-old cat. That thing was crying for about a week. But then it looked around, and then I brought in another cat, Carl, who was named because it looked like every Carl at Walmart that goes, "Hello, how are you?" You
Oh
know?
my god. Yeah.
So Carl, still that, will come up to me and go, meow, like that. And I'm like, oh, hey, Carl. You might hear when I say Carl's name, Carl sit next to me and just start yelling into the microphone.
Oh, good. I hope he
Um,
does.
yeah, that'd be good. Here, Carl. Okay, Carl, come around. He'll hear his name and go from there. So anyway, I just had a Murray beer. Murray is
Good.
a Pakistani beer.
Sounds a
So
bit Irish to me, but Murray. All right, go ahead.
Murree.
Okay, so
So
definitely not Irish.
yeah, this is a very, very, very people think this is a very melting pot sort of place. There's so many different people, cultures, languages. I was shocked.
Oh
I
wow,
came
yeah.
here and I'm thinking, oh, it's all this or that. Oh, was I
Sure.
wrong?
Oh yeah, there's
Oh, what have they
preconceptions
done?
about Pakistan, certainly. So that's enlightening to know.
Yeah, here's another enlightening thing. Islamabad's known for its cheeseburgers. So
Really?
people like, really? Yeah, exactly. It's like you come here, there's 100 places you can get cheeseburgers. They
That's
love their
crazy.
ice cream, and it's real ice cream too.
The real thing.
It's the
Wow.
yeah, it's they use real milk, and it's the real full fat milk where it really tastes creamy. And then they put in like real strawberries, I'm like, oh my God, this is really, really good. And
Wow.
it's really cheap. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So it's really good. It's pretty solid. There's a lot of things here really that it's pretty cool. It's a unique place, and that's one thing that if anybody ever wanted to visit, it's going to be, give it 5 years. In 5 years, it's going to be on one of those. If you're adventurous, come to northern Pakistan because there's some things here. There's still kingdoms. Okay. Oh, you'll love this. You'll love this. You'll love this. I went to Chitral. The
Hmm.
king of Chitral, I went and I saw the king of Chitral. I got a picture of him. He went to Birmingham University, I think Birmingham in
Hmm.
England, but he did his master's at the University of Miami.
Oh
So
wow.
we talked about Pirates baseball the whole time,
Oh
and I had my
no,
Pirates
really?
shirt on. Oh yeah, he's like, "Hey, your shortstop broke his ankle." I said, "Yeah, blah blah blah." So we're talking about Pirates, Buccos baseball
This is
with the
with a
King of
king. With
Chitral.
a king.
King of Chitral, yeah, on Eid. So Eid is the holiday. So I'm there talking Pirates baseball, King of Chitral on Eid. We're talking. This was last April, like middle of April, and we're talking, and then I'm like, oh my God, this guy can make me disappear. And we were talking about Buccos baseball.
That's brilliant.
Oh
I
yeah,
just, I can't even imagine it. Right? It's just it's surreal. It had to. I mean, right? So I mean,
yeah,
you're friends with this guy. You talk. I mean, anybody you're talking Bucko baseball with, you have to be friends because well, it's Pittsburgh Pirates baseball. It's not New York Yankee baseball, right? So here
yeah.
you are, right, 3/4 of a world away or whatever, and you're talking Pittsburgh Pirates baseball with a king. I mean, come on, right? The best I can do in this channel is Ken Castro, which isn't bad. Ken's not in here yet to defend himself.
Poor
So
Ken.
poor
Poor
Ken,
Ken.
he's not in here yet to defend himself. This is a little early for him, I think. So,
I
you
when
know,
well when I was up there, I got a really great. So anybody that's out there, I mean, we got one of the nice things about this channel is I don't care about the number of viewers or whatever. Like when I do what I do, I know I'm going to have 20 or 30 committed people. And I feel very, very happy the
hmm
fact that 20 to 30 people I make their life better by doing something that they can sit
Yes.
back and enjoy. That's all I care about. That's it. I don't need 300 or 400 people.
No.
So if anybody ever wanted to come out here, it's just simply on Facebook, just message me. We'll get you a visa and you get to see weird things like this. I went up and for Dad's birthday, I had the guide who I would anybody that wants to visit, I'd give them I'd say, hey, use this guide. He set up a game of Bushkazi. Do you know what Bushkazi is?
I haven't the first clue.
This is what you do. I heard a lamb going, man, man. And I'm like, what's that? And he goes, the ball. And I go, oh. And then all of a sudden, so what they did was they decapitated the lamb.
Oh,
And
geez.
then what they do is there's 14 people riding horseback or 12, 6 aside. And what they did was I paid X amount of rupees. We bought this cheap plastic trophy,
Mhm.
but they would take the goat or the lamb, pick it up and try it and throw it in a circle of justice. So they picked it up and they're riding all around, but it was like half court basketball. In basketball, if you miss, you got to take it back, then go.
Right.
Well, if the defense got the ball, they had to right outside the ring, but there's no out of bounds. So I have pictures and I have video of them running through people, running, jumping over fences with a guy holding a thing, people yanking the thing, trying to yank it, heading right towards a tree, one guy flipping off his horse. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm like, sports without safety is the greatest thing ever.
Sports
I'm like,
without safety quote of the day so far.
yeah, it's SWOIS, sports S without safety, SWAS. It's SWAS. And I'm like, Annie SWAS. So then the next day I saw polo, but there were no rules to polo. So they're ramming horses against each other. A guy broke his nose because they hit a polo stick and it went up and it got the guy's nose and there was blood everywhere. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, this is great. I'm like, this is wonderful. And I'm watching that. I'm like, hey, all this for a $5 plastic trophy. And
You
I'm
can't
like,
beat
this
it,
is
right?
great.
You
The
can't beat it.
what they were using it for is a qualifier. One of the biggest things in the world, one of the most unbelievable things you could ever see is the in the Hunza Valley in Gilgit. I think it was Shendo Valley or something. They play every year a no holds bar polo game where when people start fighting, the referee will leave and then everybody will fight. And then the referee will come back and say, are you done? Let's play. And then they keep playing. Oh, it's great. Sports without safety, and nobody wears a helmet.
Nobody wears a helmet.
Oh God, no, no. You wear a helmet, there's something wrong.
There's something
1970
wrong.
safety. Yeah. They wear a helmet. It's like the old batting helmets in the 1970s.
Oh my God.
Where they didn't cover anything.
No,
Oh, well, you
exactly.
just cover your tip of your back of your head. Well, that's not even pointed towards the pitcher. So what's the side? It hits you in the ear or the side of the face. So, wait a second. Yeah, but your hairline is covered. And it's like, oh, so Gary Gaetti with that helmet that didn't have the ear flap for all those years with the Cardinals.
Right.
Everybody's like
Right.
butchered up with like all those ear flaps and this and that. The one side ear flap, the second eye side ear flap, and you have then when you break your nose, you have the football helmet type face mask. And here's a guy who basically wears a hat with a little plastic on it. Yeah, okay, I'm good. I'm like, oh, that's great. Gary
So,
Gaetti helmet.
so something interesting. You talk about batting helmets. There's something that our Pittsburgh franchise, my understanding is we're the first team to actually regularly use batting helmets. So it's something that I'd learned some time ago. So Pittsburgh Pirates, how about that? The Steel City and helmets on the head. I mean, so but man, these are great stories, and looking forward to hearing some more from you while we go along. You guys, I don't know if you're asleep out there. Feel free to put some questions in the chat,
Yeah,
whatever.
please do. That's great. The crazier the questions. Look, my life is a Truman Show. It really is.
Yeah.
Not only did I tell you that, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a great story. It's a 1 in a billion story, two stories in a row. Now,
All
you
right.
have that first story I told you.
Oh, absolutely.
Then there's a guy, and he helped me get hired in Saudi for my first international gig. He was the principal of Jubail. His name is Dan Mock, real good guy. He turned that around. He turned that absolutely around. It was a small desert school, part of ISG. He made it into a gem, a gem.
Wow.
So then he let the other principal know. He kind of gave a nod and said, "Yeah, he's ambitious. He's going to take work, but he's ambitious. He'll be." So I got hired there. Well, Yanbu shut down. Okay. So he ended up, we all say expiration dates, what I said earlier. So his expiration date happened in Saudi and he left. And
Hmm.
I didn't get hired on the other side because they wanted a 20-year veteran. And I made my mistakes. I said the dangs and the darns and the oh no's and
Sure.
this and that. It just wasn't a fit at Yambu too much. I mean, there were some great people there, but you know how it goes.
Hmm.
So then I get hired in China in Beijing, and I'm walking towards a blue frog in the middle of Beijing, okay?
Wow.
26 million people. And I go to a place called ID City, and I see this guy that looks a little familiar, and I fully expect him to speak German. I'm like, hey, where's Blue Frog at? Blue Frog is like the Applebee's.
Uh-huh.
So I go, hey, where's Blue Frog at? And this guy starts talking. I'm like, wait a second. Is your name Dan? He goes, yeah. I go, is your last name Mock? Yeah. Is your name Dan Mock? And he goes, some people call me that. And I go, Dan, it's Chris from Yambu. At that time, I had lost 110 pounds in 7 months. I put myself on a diet,
Uh-huh.
crash diet. I lost 100. So it looked a little different. And he goes, oh my God. I go, Chris from Yanbu in the middle of friggin'
I was
Beijing.
going to say 26 million. What right? The largest city in the world, population-wise, and I mean, what are the odds? What are the odds?
Then he was the head of school at Springboard, which was right down the road.
Hmm.
Great guy, and his wife was there. So every couple weeks we went to the Swan and stuff. All right, if that stops there, we still got a crazy life. This is Truman Show stuff. So I
That
got
is.
to hear, and we have people that are ahead of our badges to get into the embassy. There's the enclave where all the embassies are, and then our embassy. So this one guy named Ed is in charge. And I was talking to him one day and I go, hey, I go, I'm doing a little license on this, but the essence is absolutely true. I go, hey, where are you from? And he goes, I'm from Karn City. I go, oh my God, that's 10 miles away from me. I go to a dentist in Shakora.
Dude, this
And
is
he goes,
spooky.
oh, Dom
Right?
DeFrancis, blah, blah. I go, yeah, Dom. And we started talking. We knew Tommy
Wow.
Wagner was a teacher there, was the AD there. And he was, oh, unbelievable. But that's not it yet. We start talking, and he goes like this. He goes, yeah. I go, oh, do you have a family? He goes, yes, sir, in Brasilia. I go, wait a second. There's somebody I know from Western Pennsylvania and Brasilia. And he goes, my wife was from Western Pennsylvania. He said her name. I sat 3 chairs away from her in high school graduation.
That's that's freaky. That is
It was
freaky,
like,
man.
so I went and I started giving pictures like to the people in the office. I'm like, yeah, look at this, look at this. What they do is I don't want to go give away too much around because I don't know. I want to make sure everybody's safe. But you're
Sure.
in place A and B, and people usually come here for a year or two and then they leave.
Sure.
And their families are in place A or B or whatever. So they
Hmm.
go and it's good. And there are a lot of great people and stuff. So, they do that. Okay, that's great. But he left. I lost my badge because they charged me $50 for 2 shawarma in Canada when I wanted to see a Canadian F ball game. I
Uh-huh.
lost my mind and then I lost my badge.
Oh,
So I'm like, yeah, so I came back and they have somebody new, but we have to, just establish a relationship, blah, 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 like that. And I'll
right.
get it back. It's just they want to make sure everybody's safe. So a lot of bureaucratic stuff and whatever. So
Sure.
that was absolutely like, see, everything. It's weird. It's such a small world, international teaching, but still, some of these things are like Like, what the hell? It's like I gotta have a camera on me, and I probably do, but it's probably like some hacker somewhere probably
Yeah.
trying to get my yeah,
So I mean,
yeah,
what's funny, right, is I think what makes this more incredible is, I mean, Pittsburgh's not a small city or that area, right? A metropolitan area, population of about 1 million, give or take. I mean, we've been losing population in the burg, but I think what makes this so incredible is that, so if you were from New York City, it would be somewhat amazing, but Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh, and you're in Beijing, right? As you say, 26 million people, and truly, what are the odds? I mean, if you're a Vegas odds maker, I would love to know what the odds would be. And you're right. So again, you're all the way. And I mean, come on. I mean, how many people, not only just in America, but in any country in the world, could just be in Beijing, right? It's you're there. I mean, certainly now, maybe not the best time for, especially if you're American, to be there, but just to meet somebody like that, and again, here you are. You've shared these amazing stories, right? I mean, talking Pirates baseball with a king. I'm trying to really wrap my head around that one still, and now you're hitting me with this one, Chris.
yeah.
It's
It's
madness.
well, I would say with these countries, because I've been to a lot of countries that get a bad
Sure.
rap. I lived in Saudi for 2 years and I loved it.
Hmm.
And people, the one thing comes out, well, you're a guy. Well, we had a lot of single females that lived in Yanbu, which is the most conservative, one of the most conservative cities on earth.
Uh huh.
And they loved it. And they were not, their political beliefs were not conservative, and they loved it. It's just a feeling. And that's the one thing I say. So, even with China, even with everything else, in all honesty, when I was with China, there was okay. So I got there, and 2 days later, at 3 in the morning, I got the knock on the door, and I just opened it up, and I showed them my passport, and I offered them some Qingdao. Don't
Hmm.
oh well, where that's all I and they go, no, 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 that's all right. And we talked for about 5 minutes, and they left just to let me know that they're make sure everything's all right. Let me know that they're there, stuff like that. But other than that, I really had no encounters. I think that inside there, and I'm not trying to make this is only my perspective. I think that they got their own, like any other country, they got their own problems. They
Oh,
got their own things that
absolutely.
they're doing. And the least thing that they could care about, some guy that kind of blows a stack every so often that goes to too many trivia nights that is a little too into. I mean, I'll tell you what though, the city was to me, it has a lot of history to it.
Oh,
It
sure.
was a little more average because I don't like big city. The only big city I like is Bangkok.
Okay.
Bangkok is one that isn't like it's 10 million people,
Hmm.
but it's 14 million in the day and 10 million in the night because 4 million people come into Bangkok every day to work and then they leave. It's one of the most unbelievable things. The traffic jams there are freaking unbelievable.
Oh, have to be. They have to
But
be.
when you walk through the city, the people are small town. They're always helping you. They're always nice. There's no pushing and shoving on the subway. When I was on the subway in Beijing, I did see them with the broomsticks. That is true.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I think
the late,
Japan is something similar. They pushers, right?
oh
Cram 'em
yeah,
in, right? Yeah.
the ladies in orange, and I'll tell you what, we're talking a little F ball. There's a guy, he must have been 300 pounds. He took a running start and just jammed his way in there. And he put his forearm right into my neck. And I
Oh.
got so ticked because once he's in, the thing closed and I was jammed against this guy. And I had
Oh.
the longest swear word ever. I'm like, you, it was a compound word that lasted 10 minutes. And but I'll tell you what, if it was funny because 6:55, nobody was on at all the subway, and it was very nice, peaceful, calm, clean. This is Beijing. 7:05, cram, just 10 minutes. And I remember
Wow.
I got off the China International Exhibition Center. Now this is crazy. I got the most whacked out. I had the most beer in my life at the National Door Festival. Um, because of the construction, the door business, just selling doors that you walk through,
Uh-huh.
is a $1 billion business. So they had an
That's wild.
exhibition,
Uh-huh.
and me and my buddy faked like we were investors because I looked American and he looked Vietnamese. His family was from his ancestors were from Vietnam. So, but he was from Colorado. He went to University of Wyoming, and he
Mhm.
was actually taking pictures of Barry Sanders on the sidelines. So anyway, me and Hugh went in and we just acted like we were investors, and everybody was giving us free beer.
Oh, that's
And
brilliant. That's brilliant.
oh, I was so hammered. Then I started making up names. I started making up names to businesses. And I'm like, Hugh, what the hell do I call a door business? And I'm like, so we start out with swingers. And Hugh's like, no. He's like, that's too X-rated. Nobody's ever gonna believe that swingers is a door. I go, but they swing.
Right, they
So
swing.
we
That'd be
just
a great name.
yeah,
Yeah.
swingers. I'm like, hey, we're swinger. Hey, yeah, yeah.
Hey.
And they go, where's your cards? And I go, we're real new. We came over here. Give us your address. We'll send you the cards. They're being printed now. We'll
Oh,
get them in a
dude.
week. Yeah, in a week. Yeah, in a
That's some
week. And
serious
me,
balls, Chris. I gotta tell
yeah.
you.
So we're getting out of there. And we're like, oh, we're just getting the hell out of here. So we did all that stuff, and a couple start biting. They're like, yeah, well, you know what? Give us this. And I said, yeah, we're looking at this. Can you give us a quote? And Hugh has a little background. So he's like, can you give us a quote for like a 15-story building? And he starts saying some specs, and I'm like, oh, he's giving us credibility. And they start going down. They go, okay, well, this is not official, but here's a quote. And I'm looking through, and it's like 35 million US dollars. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, what are we getting ourselves into? I'm like, oh my God. I don't want to. I'm like, Hugh, I don't want to sign a contract. And Hugh's like, they don't know who we are. He's like, here, just drink the beer. So I said, all right. So I remember that. They had a German company there. And I'm like, well, they're probably going to find us out because they'll have the resources. So
Right.
anyway, but we went back. We did stuff like that. You could do that in Beijing, but you're right. Now today, it's getting a little bit more controlled. Back then, it was you could have a little bit more fun. It's like Islamabad is today. You can have fun. Yesterday, we went to a trivia night. I
Mhm.
don't have I told you I lost my badge. So I
Right.
went in and I live in a fourplex. And I told my neighbors, I said, hey, I said, do you know what the password is? And they go, the password? I go, yes, it's Go Steelers. So I went around, and these people don't. I go like this. I smile at the guard. I go, hey, good to see you. Go Steelers. And I just drove right through the gate. And he's like, he waved. And I go, there, we don't need to show ID. And,
Nice.
and he's
Nice.
like, what? They're like, how do you do it? I said, well, because if we're going in, we're not going to be doing anything that nobody wants to be bothered. It's only if you look suspicious by stopping, looking around, seeing if you're followed, stuff like that. I
Mhm.
said, we're people going to a trivia night. So
Right.
anyway, we went in, but so you can have fun here, but there'll be a day when you have to have retina scans to get in and this and that. And
Mhm.
like to buy my Murray beer, I got to go to the side of the Marriott, and I got to go in, and I get to the front of the line and I say, hey, give me some of that green stuff. And they give me the green cans. It's great. I joke with the guy. The guy's back there. I come back out. I'm like, one of these days, it's all going to be gone. I said, and I'll be joking. Hey, I just went into the side of the Marriott, blah, 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 blah.
Enjoy it while you got it. So I gotta
Yeah,
ask you, then we'll get
sure.
in, because I know these guys are probably waiting for some more, like, some sports talk, whatever. But how does a Pittsburgh kid end up like teaching all over the world? I mean, what if you don't mind my asking? Because I think
Sure.
it's brilliant. And let me preface this by saying, oh geez, now it's like just blown up. There's all kinds of people in here. So let's say hi to everybody. So I think StreamYard's being a little slow. Maybe everybody has been here for a while and I just didn't see it. So, Carlos Yaz, welcome in. Cousin Ken Castro is with us. Todd
Oh,
B,
Ken, good to see you. Ken, you're
Legend
great.
Sports
I
Universe. Nathaniel Lentz. Jeez, man, you're a rock star here. It's like having the actual Beatles here. So what we're going to get to, because some of the really good comments. So let me preface this though by saying, before you answer this, is I'm actually very, very gratified that you were, talking about your experiences thus far, because I think that, here right in the West, we have some terrible misconceptions, about these countries. I know China. I've always wanted to visit China, always wanted to visit Russia. I mean, and that's part of my faith. I'm Eastern Orthodox. So it's always been like, I want to go to Russia. Right now, it kind of sucks. There's sort of a war going on. But, I mean, you hit upon something that's right. Look, you know what? People are people at the end of the day. And I like, how you related to, you talked about like in Bangkok, right? Here's this huge city, and yet everybody's kind of, I like how you put it, they're small town, everybody helping one
it
another.
is.
And I'm thinking, go to Manhattan, go to Chicago. You're not going to experience the same thing that you experienced in Bangkok. And yet, I think a lot of preconceptions about Bangkok is like, oh, it's this dirty, filthy city, and people are just out to rob you and do all these other things. So I'm really loving the cosmopolitan perspective as someone who's
Let
lived in
me let me
other
say, I
parts
know
of the
you got a
world as well.
question. I know
Yeah.
you got a question, but let me just interject this.
Yeah,
In
please.
Bangkok, I went into a macro and accidentally left my computer in the parking lot, my $1,000 computer that the school gave me,
Uh-huh.
which means I'm up a creek without a paddle if I lose it. I went back. I'm like, start panicking. Oh my God, where is this? Where is it? Still in the same cart in the parking lot. 2 hours later, nobody
Wow.
touched it.
Wow.
Outside. And same thing happened to me in Saudi Arabia because I have a short memory.
Right.
So I same thing, both Saudi Arabia and Bangkok. My computer was outside for a couple hours in a shopping cart in a parking lot where everybody was passing by it. But it's Sabai Sabai in Thailand. Nobody, it's not theirs. Why would they care?
And
Next,
yet
they
that the
go.
same would not happen in our beloved Pittsburgh. That thing would have been gone, gone, gone.
That'd be gone
Right?
if I were holding it. If I were
Yeah,
holding it, that would be gone. You know what?
exactly.
No, no, no. You know what though? I don't know. I don't know because I still have. I don't want to say it's over, and then people go, "Oh, where do you live?"
Right.
When I'm in Pittsburgh, I even go home for the summer. A lot of Pakistan reminds me. The people remind me a lot of Pittsburgh people. Down to earth. They love their sports. Very, very family oriented. Very
Mhm.
religious oriented.
That's
Very
definitely
much
Berg.
like their
Yeah.
food, their meat, their absolute meat. They get, a lot of the traits of people in Pittsburgh are a lot of the traits of people here. That's why I say, except for the driving. Oh dear God, driving here is like freaking. Oh my God, throw spaghetti down and try and navigate that. Holy Jesus. I'm like, oh my God, it's like Jesus Christ. It's like trying to navigate here. When you go to an intersection, I taught
Uh-huh.
everybody, when in doubt, beep it out. So all you do is hold on your horn and you go through the intersection. There are no four-way stops here. There are
Oh man.
four-way goes. There are four-way goes. And you just go four ways. And I'm like, oh my God. I know Todd B is like, do they hate the Cleveland Browns?
Today the Cleveland Browns.
Well, yeah, because I forced Pittsburgh down their throat here. It's funny
There.
because when I go to school, I have a terrible towel up. I have Pittsburgh Pirate batting helmet there, one of those ice cream batting helmets, that and a Toronto batting helmet. Because I got to have my American League team. The national. I grew up in the days of where National League never played American League. And
Right.
then when the Pirates finally played the Blue Jays, I was like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Overload. This never happened. It almost happened in the 92 World Series. And I got scared. I'm like, who am I going to root for? And then the
Right.
Pirates, Sid Bream, he was at a basketball game one time. And I was like this. I go, hey, let's recreate some of the famous moments of Sid Bream's career. And the guy next to me goes, what, you want him, want to go up to him and have him running home again to win an NLCS? I go, no, let's recreate his knee injuries right here. that's, that's what I. No, Sid Bream, he was a nice guy. His kids went through high school. I remember subbing, and I'm like, blah blah blah. We're calling out roll, and I'm like Bream, and I'm like, oh yeah, your dad made me cry, and like when I was in sixth
I
grade.
still haven't
Yeah,
forgiven Sid. I'm sure he's a nice guy, and he still has the temerity to live in the Pittsburgh area. I still haven't forgiven him. I don't hate him, but that hurt in '92. Oh my God.
yeah. Well, you know what? He I can't blame him because he's one of the hardest where he is a very nice guy. I heard a lot of really good things about him, very involved in the community.
Oh yeah.
And people, he is such a good guy that he could be your next door neighbor in Pittsburgh, and people forget the fact he made him cry. People are like, "You're fine. You're fine." Look,
Oh yeah. I
what
mean,
else are you gonna
if
do?
I met Sid, but I'd have to get a little dig in there. I'm like, couldn't you just have backed off a little slower and let Spanky get the tag down? But yeah, I mean, but it's just that was because I remember just a friend of mine. I forget the exact details. I was working at Penn State part time because I was, still a student and everything like that. And so he was calling every half inning, right? And it's like, yeah, man, we're on our way. It's da 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 da. And I'm like, all right, going to the bottom ninth, and I'm sitting at the reference desk at Petit Library, and the phone rings, and he said, "Dude, are you sitting down?" And I said, "What?" He said, "Are you sitting down?" And he told me, and I'm like, "Oh my God, no, no, no."
Oh,
So yeah, it was just, I mean, I didn't get to, I didn't see the game. Obviously, I'm at work at the library, but I could just envision it, and then I saw it, and it's like it's exactly what I saw, and that was it. And of course, then the big drought until the 2010s. Oh my
well,
God.
at
Oh my
my
God.
we have a lot of former major leaguers that when I was a senior, I was always terrible at sports. So I was an equipment guy because I liked enjoying sports and getting out of school. So those two things were great. So I was equipment guy for football Friday nights. Okay, that was fun. Then I did that at Pitt for football and for baseball. Um, but I did basketball, and basketball was fun. And then I was equipment guy my senior year for baseball. And I graduated with a guy named Dusty Thompson, and his dad was Scott Thompson, former Cub and Giant Expo and stuff like that. Well, Rick Russell married pitcher Rick Russell married Scott's sister. So that was his brother-in-law. So when I was a senior in high school, Scott became the coach just for 1 year to coach Dusty, and he brought Rick Russell, and he was a quiet guy, but he would say some of the friggin' funniest things. But that's why my tribute game was such a disaster, because I remember I had a tribute, everybody was doing tribute games on their sports simulation channels. He was
Mhm.
down. So I did one, if you could watch it, I did one on Out of the Park Baseball with Rick Russell, and it was the first Creators Cup. And I
Okay.
said, Rick Russell game. So he was down in the third inning, 22-1.
Oh,
And I'm like, this
an
is the worst.
ignominious start to say the least, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my, and he was yanked, and I'm like, oh my god. But his daughter went to knock, and she's very good. She has a kid, all that stuff. Very nice person. Always wore dad's number 48 when she played softball. And but he was at one of her games, and I had tossed a parent from Deer Lakes who was a coach, and he goes, "Hey, look, can I give you a little advice?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Look," he goes, "that whole thing started because he asked you a question. You gave him a very professional answer." He goes, "But he's a dad. He's not a professional manager." He's like,
Mhm.
he's dad. He probably has a job he hates. He probably has bills not getting paid. He's probably, when you answer that way, he doesn't know how things are. He goes, so whenever he asked, where's that pitch? And then you gave him like a short answer, he goes, he started the ball rolling. He goes, with these guys that aren't just if they ask, just answer it nicely. He goes, and now, you know what? Ever since I followed that advice, I cut my ejections down by like 95%. And I'm like, he's right. He gave me the best refereeing advice ever in my life. And I'm like, that's the best thing in the world. I'm like, you're right. It's not, they ask a question, I answer, we move on. They're not always trying to pick at me.
Mm.
And but I remember that. Sorry for that aside. I still got to answer
No,
your
man.
original question.
No, it's okay. Don't apologize. Of course, Rick spent some time with the Bucks,
Yeah.
uh, as well. So just some comments about Russell, right? Todd B said Russell was a pretty good pitcher on many bad Cubs teams. Indeed, he was. He was a help to the Bucks too, man. I mean, we weren't, when Russell was pitching for us, we weren't exactly, we were still building back up again, what have you. There's Aaron Reed. And so Todd B also said, well, and Carlos thinks Russell was a Cubs ace, if ever they had one back then. Todd B said he'd love to hear Russell tell stories about Dave Kingman.
Well,
So
Russell, Scott Thompson, and a little known baseball player who was a hell of a hitter named Bill Buckner, they used to take their stipends because what people don't realize is per diems. So when a
right.
major league team gets on the road, they get X amount of money per diem. It's in all the union contracts and this and that. So what happens is when they were with the Cubs, they would always use their per diem for poker. So
Oh, love it.
so I asked Scott one time, I go, what was he like as a player? He goes, nice guy, hell of a hitter, but he goes, too much of a showman. And I go, what do you mean? And he goes, he won a lot of his gold gloves because back then the only way most sports writers saw Major League Baseball games was when they tuned in This Week in Baseball
Oh my
on
God,
it
Twib,
was
good old Twib.
Twib. Well,
Yeah.
what he would do is he perfected the art. What Bill Buckner did, he perfected the art of whenever a ball was hit to him, he would wait until the last second and make sure it's a blowout game, but wait to the last second, then run and make this amazing dive. So Mel Allen's like, now from Los Angeles or now from Chicago or something, and watch this as Bill Buckner lays out in an 8-0 win or something. I forget where they played together. So that was I forget where they played together, I think it was Chicago they played together. I'm not sure because they both went everywhere. And but he said that's how he won his gold gloves. He just waited until the last moment, then he ran and he laid out for all those balls. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah. And now today you see everybody doing that, waiting to the last second in a blowout game and doing that to get the highlights so people get excited about them and they get press so that they can get their name out there for all-star votes. I'm like, I got it. I'm like, I get it now. Now all of a sudden when I go to games, I know how to heckle people. Like when I heckle, no, I know. Like Jeremy Burnett's when he was played for the Brewers, and I always was a poor bastard my whole life. I got a little bit of money doing this now, finally, after 3 decades of living out of a car. So I went to a game and I sat in the right field, the seats at PNC Park, and the Pirates were down 8-0, and they won 9-8 to the Brewers. This was 2001 or whatever. Well, Burnett's did that when it was 8-0. And I remember Scott Thompson told me, and I'm like, so I started heckling him. I'm like, hey, when it was 9-8 Pirates, when they took the lead in the 8th, I'm like, hey, Burnett's, it was 8-0. Remember that? And it's all your fault. Said, blah, 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 blah. That and the time I heckled Robin Yount. So there was me and my one buddy went to a game in September. I remember this. Well, it was September 2001, and it was the first game back after September 11th, and It was against the Diamondbacks, and nobody was there. It was raining, it was cold, and the Pirates were in last place, and the first base coach was Robin Yount. And I remember there, and it started pouring down rain, and nobody was there, and I said, I'm just going to let them have it. So after every base hit, I remember Yount in 83 going 0 for 3 in the last game of the regular season. If he gets one of those hits, Milwaukee makes the playoffs again. Every time there was a hit, I'm like, hey, if you would have done that in 83, you would have a
Oh,
World Series ring.
and this is
And then there's
resonating
another
all
one.
over the park, right? Nobody's there,
Oh,
all over PNC, right?
there was like, oh, yeah, because there was nobody there. So finally, I hate this. Whenever you start heckling, you know how you really get in a rhythm. You
Oh
get in
yeah,
a rhythm
oh
and
yeah.
you know it. But sometimes you say stupid stuff and you're like, oh, that came out wrong, or oh, that was stupid. Or remember, yeah, the Brewers Pirates game, Nathaniel Lentz. Yes, I was in left field. Hey, Burnett, it's 9-8, and it's all your
Oh
fault.
God, this is
But
hilarious.
anyway, so I started heckling, and then these two idiots come down, and they just sit right behind us, and they start this unfunny stuff. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, way to steal the show, you morons. So
Yeah.
anyway, I had to change it up a little bit. So then at the very end of the sixth inning, I remember he turned around and it was pouring down rain, and there was four of us at that time. And he turned around and he goes, having fun to all of four of them. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is great. He said something. So that's great. So I remember that, the Robin Yount. And then the Pirates had a bat boy that looked like Robin Yount. And I used to heckle him. Hey, Robin. Hey, no, he looked like Fidrich. He looked like Mark
Oh
Fidrich.
man.
He had the fro and everything. He looked like Mark Fidrich. And I
Did he
kept
talk?
screaming
Did he
out,
talk it all to the
talk to
ball?
the ball. I kept saying that. Hey, you're not talking to the ball, are you? Hey, who are you talking to? And whenever he would chew gum, whenever he would say something to anybody, I could see he would like talk to people, but they'd be in the dugout or something.
Right.
I'd start screaming, there's nobody there. You're just talking to yourself. There's nobody there. I remember seeing when I was young and my dad used to yell at me. Okay, we used to be in the mall. And
Uh-huh.
dad was like, all right, Chris, blah, blah, blah. When he used to yell at me, I used to just stop and let dad walk about 20 feet, 30 feet ahead of me. So he didn't realize he was all alone. And there he is ranting and raving with nobody around him because I had stopped. So he's like, Chris, you got to blah, 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 blah. I would just stop and he would go about 30 feet ahead of me. And then everybody were looking at him like, who the hell's he yelling to? What's going on here? Is that? And I'm there like 30 feet behind him. And then he'd look at you, Chris, where are you? I'm like, yeah, you're walking too fast. Like this. He's like, I remember that people would look at him after he's yelling. He'd yell, bah, 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 and I just stop. And then he'd walk ahead of me.
Oh my God. You're talking about
But
Fidrich and you're talking, how we always about, him talking to the ball. And I always thought that he was kind of like the Ozzy Osbourne of baseball. There's a friend of mine was he worked like at Rolling Stone and stuff like that. And he said he tried to interview, this was back in the day when Ozzy was like just way out there, right? And he tried to interview Ozzy Osbourne and end up watching Ozzy Osbourne talking to a balloon for an hour. So wouldn't it have been cool to have Fidrich and Osborne kind of have a discussion? I mean, talk about existentialism. I mean, at its best, right there. But I continue, man. This story is great, and the
well,
guys are
you're
loving it.
you're
Midlife
into music,
crisis.
right? You're really into music.
I'm
You'll
a
love
musician and a sleight of hand artist. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll love this. You'll love this. There's a place that you should save up and visit if you can once in your life, and you're going to go, why the hell would I go there? You can't do it now, but wait a couple years. It's called Bamako, Mali. Bamako is the African Center for Music.
Mm.
Um, One time it was Dan's buddy, the same Dan I told you about earlier in one of the long stories. Well, his buddy goes into this bar, and there's Simon from Simon and Garfunkel. It's either Simon or Garfunkel, the one that plays the guitar.
Paul Simon.
Paul Simon, Simon then. So
Jeez, a
I am right
legend.
when I tell a story. He's just sitting there by himself. So the guy goes in there, has a drink or two with them, and they start jamming out right there. And he's like, yeah,
Oh my
I'm
God.
jamming out with Simon right in the middle of Bamako Mali like this. And
I
because
wonder
it
when
was
that was
this,
when he was doing the Graceland album, because he went to Africa to do that great album, and I wonder if that's when that was.
that might have, because I think it was before cell phones. I know
Okay,
that.
right.
One of the things about Dan that's really funny is his line of teaching. If you go straight back and you connect like it's royalty, his line in his family has been international teaching since 1901. In the
Wow.
Philippines at a one of those what do you call them? What do you go that when you're a country you set up something religious and then like what
Right.
do you call it? It's one of those things. You go to a
Yeah.
country, you feed
Yeah.
the people, you know, set up some. I forget what it's called.
Like a
A
mission. Yeah.
mission. It's a mission school. Yeah, it
Right.
was a mission school in the Philippines, and ever since then, there's been a direct line to him international teaching. Like his dad went to high school in Venezuela. Dan went to school at Taipei American School. And that's why you could tell he's a chill guy. He knows like everything and all that stuff. And he's real chill. He's a good guy.
Hmm.
Um, a very good guy. And so he's pretty cool. And but I forget where I go. Well, see, when I talk about these stories, I go in these circles. And then your
Enjoy.
original question was, how the hell did I get into
Yeah,
this?
so don't apologize because again, these guys are used to me going off on tangents all over the place. So this is all good. And if you apologize, they'll get worried. Like, wait a minute, we're at the wrong channel because people would be holding a cogent conversation, which I never do. So please, tangent all you want, man. It's all good. Seriously.
Oh, good. I got to remember my tangents. So because here's me.
I don't even remember those, Chris. So it's
Yeah,
all good.
I'm an enigma wrapped on an enigma wrapped in another enigma. And it's funny because if you actually trace my conversations, there'll be 7 levels of spiral. And then at the very end, I'll start connecting the dots and then end it. And it's like, what the hell? I asked that question 3 hours ago. And it's like, now you're answering it. And then you ask about question number 2. And I'm like, yeah, so you asked how I got into it. It's actually simple. I'll tell you that the life of this has its gives and takes. You do have a lot of things.
Sure.
You do have a lot of things that you get, but you give up a lot of things. Like right now, it's a Friday night. I'd love to be with people going to a baseball game, but there's no baseball game over here, you know?
Right.
Friday nights, sometimes we get together as teachers, sometimes it's very lonely. So it's kind of like that where there are times where it can get very difficult, but there are also times when every 9 weeks between some quarters of the school year, you get in a plane and you go to the beach in Thailand, something like that. You can go, you could do that, but there's give and take. There's a lot. Anybody can do what I'm doing. If you're a teacher, I highly recommend it. If anybody here is in education, search associates. All you do is you go
I
through
have my
them.
master's in education, which unfortunately prices me out of being a teacher, at least in the United States, which kind of sucks.
Oh
I
no,
bet.
here you'd be perfect. Here you'd
Oh
be
yeah,
perfect.
because here you have to, if you have a master's, it's like, well, you have to be a principal or get your PhD and be a superintendent. It's like, but I'm not interested in that. But yeah, anyhow, continue, man.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah,
So here's my whole thing. I don't want to get too far into family history and stuff like that, but
sure.
it's so I said to myself, hey, I want to go international. And I was thinking about Saudi Arabia to start. So because I heard a lot of things and dad was there in 2003 as a private citizen, over there with work and stuff like that. So I said, okay, what the hell? I'll go there. So I work backwards. I tell everybody, if you want to achieve something, you pretty much can achieve 98% of things. Even if you got a great looking freaking girl you want to go out with, you can achieve that. A lot of times people will achieve that and get pissed at themselves going, no, I really didn't want to do this because
Hmm.
they don't realize there's an attitude in a person you got to live with. Um, so anyway, I started there and I worked backwards. Well, um, as an English teacher, I didn't really like English teaching, and it was really anxiety provoking for me.
Okay.
It really got a lot of that, and I'm like, I can't. So I went into school counseling, and I really liked it.
Hmm.
And so I went into school counseling and I went to Arizona. First, I was hired in Georgia. Then they called me 18 days later and goes, you don't really have the real certification, so we can't hire you. I'm like, what? I'm like, what the hell? So anyway, I went back. I went out to Arizona, spent 2 years there. And then I told you earlier on in the interview, I interviewed with ISG and then went out to Yanbu. Um, went out there, and what happens in international teaching is it can get a little bit crazy. Um, it's you have to lose a job to get a job. So you tell the school you're not coming back, and then you're a free agent, and then you go to job fairs, and then so you don't even know what kind of country you can't say I want to go to this school because it's got the timing has to be right. So what
Mhm.
happened was after Yanbu shut down, I didn't know where to go. I I was pissed because I wanted to go to the Sudan. And I signed with the school in China before the Sudan. And I probably would have been there when I evacuated people last year.
Sure.
I probably would have been in the Sudan, but everything happens for a reason. I'm really, really happy now at the place I'm at. So if I would have gone, I probably wouldn't have gone here. You see what I'm saying? So it happens
Yeah.
for some sort. The wheel of life, no matter what religion, happens for a reason. So anyway, I came back and I went to China. Then COVID hit. And I'm like, oh, crap, it's July. November is the hiring season for the next school year. And I'm like, it's July. I got no job. I was cut because of COVID. I
Mhm.
fled China. I fled through Thailand. I was actually a refugee. According to the UN, I was a refugee. So,
Uh,
anyways, so I went through Thailand, went through the Osaka airport, listened to the people there, and got detained at the Osaka airport.
oh my God.
So I go like this. I go, all right, I need to go to a lounge because I got to go to work. I got to work online and I'm heading back. So I got to get to work. I need to go to a lounge. Well, they took me to a place. I said, there's no lounge. So we go down an elevator and they made me go through passport control twice. And when they saw the stuff, they took me into a room and said, wait here. So an hour later, after like, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I gave names and everything. That's why you always get names of people. Everybody in here, if anybody ever leads you anywhere, get their name. That saves you. So I
Yeah.
said, this person from this airline led me here. They blah, blah, blah. And then they disappeared. Instead of walking me out, they disappeared. So anyway, the lady came in and she's like, oh, I'm sorry. This, it kind of gave me a little attitude. And then I became, I hate to use his name again and again and again, but I became Lou Pinella. Lou
Oh my
Pinella
God.
right
Here we go
there.
again. All right.
Oh, I became
So here's
Lou
one circle
Pinella.
closed. Okay. For
And
those
I
who
was
don't know what I mean, you're gonna have to back up at the beginning later. So
sure. But I was like Lou Pinella, and I just, I'm like, how the hell can you, blah, blah, and now you're giving me attitude? I said, what the? But I went, it was Japan Airlines, and they were terrible because I went to them and I said, look, I got detained by your people. I said, this is what I want. I want to go into that lounge right there, that first class lounge, and I want to go to work. I think I deserve it. You got me detained. They go, no, we're just going to give you an apology. And I said, what the hell? You just got me detained for an hour. No, we're just going to give you an apology. Now you can go through customs. I said, I'm going through customs again. You freaking almost got me detained again. Can I go in there?
oh my
No,
God.
we're just going to give you. I said, Bo, you got to walk through customs. So I go to customs a second time. They look at my passport and they go, you've been here. And I look right at the lady and I go, this lady's going to tell you a story. And it's going to be a fun story. Because if I tell you that story, I'm just going to start. And then so she goes, I made her admit that she was wrong. And oh. So, anyways,
Well, that's
she
huge
did.
in Japan, man. That's huge.
Oh, that is. So I went out. I had to pay for a lounge. It was all right.
Mhm.
Remember, if you're ever traveling in Japan in the airports, eat at the 7-Elevens. They make fresh food. They're awesome, and they cost $2. To get the same meal that's not at a 7-Eleven, you're looking at a $30 American because it's 100 to 1 for the yen.
Right.
So You're looking at a 3,000 yen meal, a $30 meal, and the same thing as 7-Eleven for $2.
There you go, guys. You got some. You're getting. You came on here expecting, which we'll get to a little bit of sports talk, but you're getting some serious travel hints. But here's the thing: we're gonna recap for the latecomers. Okay, so what you guys missed is that Chris has talked Pirates baseball with a friend of his who happens to be a king, a legit king. So we
King of
got that.
Shashal. Oh, yeah.
King of Chachal. We also, of course, Babies and Lou Pinella. You have to go back and check that out, and you'll never think of Lou Pinella in the same way again, or maybe you will. Um, uh, we have so much more coming, but let's hit a couple questions here and some comments, Chris, if you don't
Sure.
mind. So Carlos has, and I have it up here on the screen. He says, "I have a question. Chris streams several sports. Which is his favorite?" You knew this was coming, so might as well just do it now, right?
Yeah. I think every sport has its different way of calling them. The most intense one is easily hockey. Because once you get in it, there's so much going on that you got to convey. Like you as an announcer are really real. A lot of these games give you all the information on the screen. They do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when you play like out of the park action PC, it's really cool. You could get by without an announcer. What we
Yep.
do is we make it fun and we bring the stories of real life. We connect real life with the people that you see on the screen and we bring back nostalgia. And for me, I just blah, 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 blah sometimes. But, anyways, so baseball is that way. But hockey, you just get a name and the puck goes flying around and people see 1-0. And it's like, what in the hell's going on here? And you got to be like, and a puck, blah, 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 and earlier in the game, and it's 7-5 in shots now, blah, 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 like that. So there's no time to take a breath. There have been times when I've almost passed out, literally, because I'm blah, 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 and I don't even take a breath. So hockey is probably the most. It is exciting. Football is storytelling. F-ball, sorry.
No, you can no. Remember, you get a pass. You get a pass.
Okay.
Anybody on mic gets a pass and then can actually say that word. You're good.
Football storytelling. Football is like whenever you bring a book up and you start telling, and you have to refer to the earlier chapters. You have to pick out the characters. You have to pick out, what happened in the past because you only get 9 possessions in an NFL game, 9 or 10. So that means that things are going to happen. It's like a baseball game, 9 innings, 9 possessions. Usually in 4 quarters, you get about that. And you got to really tell it. And in the third quarter, I mean, look at the scores in football. I mean, you might have 3 or 4 scores in a game per team. So if somebody's on the 2-yard line in the first quarter and they throw a pick, you know that's a big thing, especially in a big game. That could turn momentum. That could be the difference. That could be a lot of things. So it's like you got to remind people about that. You got to look for trends. Baseball is a different storytelling. Baseball is you got to incorporate the season when you do a baseball game. That's why like your broadcast is like Beatles. Like when you do a broadcast, you bring in not only the history of the player, but how they're doing in the league and other games. It's like you can't just do a one-off baseball game. It's got to be attached to something. You just can't say, oh, today we're doing the 27 Yankees versus the 29 A's. Who's better? Even if you do that, you're bringing in regular season. What did they do? What did they do in a World Series? Babe Ruth is up because you got to make up for you got to create the tension. If you don't create tension, people are just going to zip to the end and go, what's the big deal? That's why when I get burned out, I go up and down. Sometimes those broadcasts are just like a PA announcer. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Oh, there's a base hit. Blah, 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 blah. There's a base hit. And I listen, I'm like, that's a nice PA announcer, but that's not exactly what announcers do.
No.
Basketball is different. Basketball is a whole different breed. Basketball, you got the intensity of hockey, but then you have the pauses. and it's like
Right.
pause, pause. You
Especially
have
if
to,
so somebody's doing a free throw, right? So that's right.
yeah.
Yeah, so I can get that. So you're switching gears, right? This guy's just yeah. So that's got to be because I know listening to Dave Little, who's superb doing
I
basketball
love them. I
in our
love them.
community.
Love them.
Dave Little's awesome. Yeah, he is. And so it always amazes me. Like so, while I'm not a sports fan, I will listen. I'll stop in and listen to Al Red Sox fan who does boxing. He's amazing at boxing. Um,
Yes.
and how all you guys approach all the different sports that you do is Big Clue in all caps says no pass for the lower sport. So Big Clue's like the other person in the community that, like me, is pretty much a baseball fan. But it amazes me because I'll listen to you, I'll listen to Al, I'll listen to Dave Little, who does some baseball, or Anthony, who he'll do some, of course, his Glory Days boxing game, and he's a big dead ball guy, so it's Dead Ball Diaries, which isn't a broadcast, but rather a mini doc. But I love listening how your styles kind of change and adapt to the demands of the sport that you're doing. And I keep thinking to myself, I couldn't do what you guys do. Number one, because if these guys they laugh at me enough as it is, which is all good. That's what I want. It's fun, right? I don't mind being the jester. Apologies to ID Jester, by the way. But if I tried to call, um, a hockey game or basketball or God forbid F ball, and again, I'll say F ball, you can say the actual name. These guys would absolutely have, like, collectively have cows. They would, because it would just be hilarious. They'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? You basically only barely know what you're talking about in baseball. And now you're going to try to do an F ball game. And I was going to surprise these guys one night and find one and just, and say, look, you guys need to be thankful that I don't follow this game. Because right, I'll go into our Red Sox fans games, right? So he'll be like, now again, guys, I'm going to use wrong terminology, so I'm going to do my best here. So we've got a zone defense here hanging up in the blah 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 blah. And I'm like, and I'll type into his chat. I'm like, what? I said, wouldn't it be better to just play for the double play, stuff like that? Because right when I listen to people doing those games, you might as well be speaking ancient Sumerian. I really, and so I applaud you guys that can adapt, and I like the fact that you were talking about how F ball's a storytelling game. How baseball, you're incorporating the seasons. Hockey, which is just mayhem, and basketball, that's sort of, you've got all this going, and then you've got to fill in some time. And I couldn't imagine, right? So for me, I'm kind of used to, in my own little idiosyncratic way, kind of the flow of baseball. And I don't know that I could, even if I did follow those sports, I don't think I could actually do what you and Al and Dave and Ron Juckett and Dave Gardner, what you guys do. And I'm not a person that's given to self limitation. Man, I'm a graphic artist. I do sleight of hand magic. I'm a keyboard player, singer, juggler, all kinds. I do all kinds of stuff. I'm an animal activist, all this thing, right? So it's not like, I'm always up for a challenge. But that to me, it's like looking at K2 and say, yeah, I can't summit that, man. And so I applaud you guys what you do. I really, really do, because you make it entertaining. I mean, I'll find myself listening to you doing F ball, or Al doing F ball, or God forbid tennis, or whatever, and I'll find myself, even though I don't like those sports, I love listening to what you guys do. It's brilliant. Midlife Crisis has a little thank you for you. He says, I noticed Chris used my Orange Bowl creation. Nice compliment.
Yeah.
Just using it. He says, thank you. Also, he feels you would fit in great at Citizens Bank Park with your heckling abilities. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I would just go to, I don't know, but maybe I'd go there and say you were talking about Sumerian, and it's Eridug Gua Bindu, which is at Eridug, the house by the river we built. So
Which
I only
which
know a
actually
little
means
bit.
which actually means a defensive blitz, right? In
That
F-ball speak.
does, that does,
Okay,
that does.
thank you
I
for
mean,
that. Thank you.
but
Let me write that down.
you
Let me write that down.
you wanted some ancient Sumerian, and that's about it for me. That's about it. I'm not really I'm bilingual. I know English and I know British. I know Canadian, and I know a little bit of Australian. So
I was
there
gonna
we
say,
go.
yeah,
We got Florida. So
shrimp and the
midlife
bobby.
crisis.
Well, then you got well, then you have to, of course, you have to know a bit Irish as well, because
Oh,
we speak the language. Although the Brits
well,
tried to stamp out our language, but anyhow, we're getting off
you're gonna
topic.
love this. When I
All
was a
right.
kid, when I was in high school, I always loved Gaelic football, and I always
Oh
loved.
yes.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
hurling. Cork still has a most number of championships in hurling. I think they have
Hmm.
18 or 19.
Yeah.
Kilkenny is good. I remember watching them. They were good. That was before they wore the helmets because I watched them a couple years ago. Um, it is. It's very interesting. I should say that I really love it. I like Gaelic football. I didn't know that Ireland and Australia every 2 years they combine Australian rules football and Gaelic football and they play each other in a series. And that's very interesting. So it's Ireland versus Australia every 2 years
Hmm.
in this kind of a game that's half Aussie rules football and half Gaelic football. So it's you should see it on YouTube. It's
And
really,
lots
really
of broken
interesting.
teeth. Yeah. So I will say this. So just out of pride, even though I don't follow it, Ireland is #1 in the world in rugby,
Oh yeah,
and,
we're
and we just
watching
beat
that.
the Brits like a week or two ago. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah, the
Um,
World Cup starts the 8th, 8th of September. We have a gym teacher, a phys ed teacher that used to play in the South African juniors.
oh wow.
And he's going to be hosting all the games and stuff. He's a great guy. He really does a good job in Pakistan with our sports. International sports are usually awful. They're awful.
Hmm.
There's only one professional athlete I can think of that came from an international school, and that's Steve Kerr, who came out of the American School of Beirut, ASB. So Steve Kerr went to high school in Lebanon, and then he went to Arizona, and then he went to the NBA, and then he coached and all that stuff. His dad was the president of the university there, the American University. Unfortunately, his dad got assassinated.
Oh.
But yeah, that was a big controversy in the late 80s because when Arizona played at Arizona State, all the Arizona State fans, when he was shooting a free throw, were going bang, bang, bang like that. And they had to have a lot of apologies. It was a mess. It was really a mess.
Hmm.
Um, the head of the president of Arizona State personally, I think, delivered a handwritten message to him the next day saying that's not right. That'll never happen again. Um, Ireland is #1 in rugby, and they're good, but they're like Wales. Ireland and Wales, they're always ranked very high, first, second, but then, Hong Kong International School, big clue. Hey, HKIS, that's a great school. HKIS, so Big Clue went to Hong Kong International School. I was there in 2019 before COVID, March of 2019. When you go to Hong Kong, literally a fun game, and Big Clue will know this, is you take a pencil and you try and fit the pencil between two buildings. And they're built
Wait.
within
Could
2
you could you
inches
could
of
you
each
expand
other.
on that a little bit? Because I'm trying to. What do you mean fit a pencil between two buildings?
So
Please, please,
you'll
please.
have this and Big Clue knows this. Big Clue knows this. So help out Big Clue. When you build two 40-story buildings for business or apartment buildings or anything like that, all right? When
Right.
you build two of them, we're used to New York City where you build a big building, there's an alleyway, then you build another building, there's an alleyway, and then another building. In Hong Kong, space and Big Clue, remember this. Big Clue, remember the Sundays when everybody would get out of their house and just go and sit in the middle of the streets and just start talking? Because they weren't protesting. They just sat right in the middle of the street because there's no space there. So literally, you take a pencil. Yeah, exactly. Big Clue saying it. You take a pencil and you cannot turn it sideways between buildings. And sometimes the buildings are less than a half an inch from each other. So when you fit a pencil in, the pencil actually gets stuck between two 30-story buildings because there's a half an inch all the way up 30 stories from each other. And I'm like, oh my God, it is the most dense thing in the world. Big Clue will tell you. Yeah, it's New York City squeezed into less than Rhode Island, squeezed into one of the islands of Rhode Island. Think if you took New York City and put it a quarter of what it is. Oh, Taipei American School. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I don't know. When did you graduate, Big Clue? When did you graduate from you're gonna so Beatles eternally. This is gonna be something shocking. Again, remember we talked about 1,000,000 to 1 odds at the beginning of this broadcast?
We did.
Big Clue is going down a road where we might have 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds. So, Big Clue, when did you graduate, Morrison, in Taiwan? 91. Did you play sports?
He just said 91. He just said 91.
When you played in 91, oh my God, did you play any sports? I got to see this. If he said yes, I am going to defecate myself.
Oh my God.
Because
all right.
UAS was her arch enemy. Did you play any sports or go to any sports games in 1991? So this is for Big Clue. We'll talk about something else until Big Clue answers. Oh shit. So you played basketball, didn't you? Well, you played against Taipei American School. So the guard of one of those basketball teams, he would have been a sophomore. And I believe he started as a sophomore. So if you played basketball, you played against Dan Mock in Taipei American School. His name was Dan Mock, and he was there. Paul Rackland was also on that team. He was the principal in ISU, International School of Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. So, yeah, you played against Dan Mock, Big Clue. How about that? Hey, Beatles eternally.
Super small world.
He remembers the name.
Super small world. Wow.
Yeah, what I tell you, 4 billion to 1s right now. It's like the 3 I told you, and this 1,000,000,000 to 1.
All right, we're playing. Everybody play the lottery today. Everybody play the lottery today. That's it.
Play the lottery. I'm going to get hit by lightning twice.
Oh, man.
Told you. I told you my life is a freaking Truman Show right now. Big Clue playing against Dan Mock in basketball when he played at Morrison.
Spooky stuff, man.
As soon as he said Morrison, I'm like, oh shit, Dan used to talk about that.
Uh-huh.
It was yeah, because we used to talk about how international sports have changed. They used to be like United States sports, but now they've changed because everybody's so academic, like that.
Right.
So they're a joke of what they used to be. So if you're really good, you go to academies. But back then when Big Clue played, they were legit. They were legit. So you practice 4 or 5 times a week like they do in the States. You play 20 games in a year. And then what's funny is Beatles eternally, whenever you go to tournaments, you go to different countries for tournaments. So this year, the basketball teams go to Dhaka, Bangladesh.
Right.
And Dhaka, oh my God, that city is Big Clue. You heard of Dhaka, haven't you? Holy God. That you want to talk about dense? That makes Hong Kong look like Kansas. Geez, I knew somebody who lived in Dhaka. They were 4 kilometers away from the airport. It took them 40 minutes to drive there. 4 kilometers. That's
4 kilometers.
miles.
40. Wow, that's nothing, right?
Yeah, TAS wasn't nearly as tough as the Air Force. Oh yeah, well, Air Force. Yeah. That's one thing when you're international, as Big Clue is saying, you play a lot of bases. So like our kids played the Marines in the embassy and stuff like that, and they played on the embassy and stuff like that. And whenever you do that, it's like, holy God. Oh, midlife crisis. Thank you for the Orange Bowl. Midlife Crisis, thank you for the Orange Bowl. He's the guy that makes the Orange Bowl. I use that because it just says Orange Bowl in both end zones. So whenever I have a neutral site game on F ball, I just put his Orange Bowl field up because it says Orange Bowl, and there's a happy little orange in the middle. And I'm
Nice.
like,
Midlife, thanks for coming in, man.
oh,
And
that's
Robert,
great.
thank you too.
And
Robert's
so I can't.
recovering from the virus, so we'll leave it at that. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I
yeah.
can't believe Big Clue played against Dan Mock.
That
That's
is so
incredible.
cool.
I,
I
I, I,
wanted to. Oh, please
go
go
ahead.
finish it because no, I had a, so if I may, because you and Legends, doing some amazing things. Of course, Steve Tate with the Shanks League as well, and my own little thing with McGreevy. But I wanted to talk just a little bit about the Creators Cup. So,
Yeah,
you've heard me ad nauseum, ad infinitum tell people if you want a master class on how to set up a tournament in out of the park baseball, that you're the man, among other things. Now, again, some people might find this more, kind of getting, but I've just been so curious. So what kind of inspired you to do it? Because these are mammoth projects, these Creators Cup, and love them. So could you talk a little bit just about that? Because we do have some newcomers to out of the park baseball that may catch this later, and they might be interested just in your inspiration because it builds itself as an infinite sandbox, and I would say that along with action PC baseball. I think that's really, really true. So, could you talk just a little bit about your inspiration and how that developed, if you don't mind, and
sure, sure,
intersperse it
sure.
with great stories of DACA and Kings and baseball. Go for it, man.
Yeah, and then we still haven't even hit Chuck Tanner,
We haven't
like the
even.
guy I
Oh
sat
my God,
next
Chuck
to,
Tanner. We're
the guy I
saving
ate
that one.
dinner
Thank
with every night for
Right.
like 2 months, and he was great. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, of course, I put that caveat and then talk about the Creators Cup. One of the things I would say is early. I think that what we do brings a lot of happiness to people because we're at work and we listen to it. So I don't know. Even if we only get 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 people listening,
Hmm.
I don't really look at it as little because we're making 10 people happy. I mean, if somebody ever says,
Love that. Yeah.
you made 10 people happy today. Oh my God. I smile. I'm like, this is great. Now they might get pissed because the team that they're rooting for loses. But my inspiration was this at the very beginning. I'm thinking, we have all these people that love sports. I think it would be really cool if they could just instead of them replaying their season, they can just sit back and watch not the best teams of all time, but just their favorites. And that's the reason why I have the setup like that. It's highly non-mathematical. It's highly weird and spurious at times.
Hmm.
But the point is, I let you play 6, 7 teams of your favorite of all time. In the regular season, you play them against other people. You play them because if I wanted to play them against himself, there's an action in out of the park baseball. I would just go to the playoffs. I would go to the 4-team round robin, and I would say play everybody 8 times. And then what you would do is you would play everybody with the pitchers twice, one home, one away. You'd have 32 games. But no, the greatest thing is see how your favorite teams do against other people. But
Hmm.
guaranteed, 2 of your teams will make the playoffs. So you get the nice feeling of saying, I get to see 2 of my favorite teams in the playoffs, like do or die.
Hmm.
I get to see which of my favorite teams, then do or die. And I always say number one in the first round, number one plays at a number two. So now, by doing that, you're going to guarantee to have a team from your division host in at least in first round, and then another team's got to go on the road.
I'll
So
let you go ahead and take control. I've got to take this call. Go ahead, Chris.
okay, sure. So what I do is I let people enjoy their teams and I let them enjoy other teams, but not the best teams because I think a lot of times we want to see our favorite teams rather than the best teams. We get sick of all we see in the 76 Reds versus the 27 Yankees or the 2001 Mariners, could they have done it? Or the 94 Expos. Well, what about the 92 Royals? What about the 89 Brewers? What about the 73 Pirates? What about, the year after Clemente? What about football? What about the 11-5 Denver Broncos team that didn't make it? What about them? Why can't we watch those teams? Why can't we see them? Football a lot of times, baseball a lot of times is a play here, a play there, and it's, a team wins the championship. And in reality, it's like a play here, a play there, a play here. And then we think a team is like gods. Steve Tate, good to see you. Good to see you, Steve. Always good to see you. But we think a team is like gods, like because they win, but they win like we always, that Patriots team, blah, 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 blah. They won a Super Bowl. Meanwhile, they win 5 games by less than a score, and they barely win a playoff game and this and that. People forget. People always forget. So I always say, pick your best teams, pick your favorite teams. And then we do that. But that's my inspiration for any Creators Cup, is to let the creators that do their own channels get to watch your favorite teams. That's my biggest thing. I think that I think by doing that, people get interested. And I think by doing that, people at a long, hard day of work can just come home and they can go, oh, there's a 1989 Steelers game, or there's a 2013 Pirates game. And then the Pirates game, you're like, hey, could they have gone all the way? Maybe.
Keep going, though. I'm back. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I was just going on a little bit of the inspiration.
Sure.
My original love for simulation baseball, my original love was when I was a kid. I remember going to a fourth grade recital. And when I came home, I played the freaking triangles. Red meant right, blue meant left. And these weren't like triangles that are normal. They were called bells. They made the thing same as triangles. So anyway, you go like this. Oh, I was done. I got Bases Loaded 2 by Jellicoe for the NES.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had batting averages and home runs, but they only had 6 teams apiece because they modeled themselves off the Japanese Nippon professional baseball. 6, then 6. That's where you get Eastern and Western. Instead of Central and Pacific, it's East-West.
Right.
Well, I started keeping stats myself. to see how accurate they were, and they weren't very accurate. And then I started watching the computer play itself, and I started finding it really fun. Just watching games like that. I could turn on a game anytime. At that time, we lived in the middle of New Jersey, so I didn't have to turn on a Phillies game. I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to do that. I'm like, this is great. Mm-hmm. Big clue, I'm a Chinichi Dragons fan. Baseball, Rocky. Okay, so there we go. Pro Yaku is the best. Pro Baseball Spirits is the best baseball game out there. It's called Pro Baseball Spirits. The absolute, you will play that and then look at MLB The Show and go, there ain't no way. Pro Baseball Spirits, and Big Clue knows this, lets you make your own chants for every baseball player. So when they come to bat, the fans make your own custom chants. And believe me, I've made teams where I made them chant things that I can't repeat here.
Well, this isn't rated for kids, so you can say what you want. So go ahead.
Good. I had a guy hitting 101. He was like hitting 100. I don't know. The Mendoza line's 200. So right. 100 is, I don't know, the Slovick line. So he's barely hitting over the Slovick line. And I had the fans start chanting, "See you next Tuesday." Because I made him real pissed that he was only hitting 100.
Cool.
Oh, yeah. And I had what they do is in Japanese baseball, they have trumpets, drums, saxophones. They have everything to their chance. So they're like, see you next Tuesday, da-na-na-na, like that. And I'm like, yes, yes.
Oh my god.
Oh
I mean,
my
it's a
God.
religion. Baseball's a religion there, man. I mean, it's amazing,
It
right?
is. It is.
Whew. Thank
They
you, Lefty
that's
O'Doul, by the way. Thank you, Lefty O'Doul. Got to give
yeah,
him some love for helping to introduce baseball to Japan.
yes, absolutely. Because people forget the biggest pre-war days
Hmm.
in the 1930s, a lot of the major league players made mega money by touring Japan
Yeah.
and playing the MLB All-Stars versus the Japanese All-Stars. And they sold out 70, 80,000 seat stadiums. And the game over there was so respectful. The players loved playing it because they never got spiked. They never got a spike to their ankles. On double plays, when they were turning double plays, the players were getting out of the way of the throw.
Oh yeah, and
Like,
Japan, in a way a much different approach to the game. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's looked down upon to get spiked in whatever in Japan, right? That's like you don't do that, right?
yeah,
But they
you
still
don't yell
play
at the
tough
umpire either.
baseball. But yeah, oh no, never. The umpire's given like supreme respect, right?
Yeah, and if they screw up and they know they screwed up, they'll get on a microphone to 60,000 people and go, "Sorry, I messed up. That's on me. I was out of position." And I'm like, "Whoa, I
Like,
love this."
could you
You
imagine
know?
Angel Hernandez doing that? Because
Oh
he's
God.
always he's always out of position. In fact, he's usually never in the same ballpark. So, yeah.
Do you know the Supreme Court of the United States? He had a discrimination case, and it made it all the way up there. And they actually said the Major League Baseball proved he was so bad that he didn't deserve he didn't deserve a promotion to do the big games. They said that he was bad, but because of rules and stuff like that, they can't just axe him, but he's getting close. But they said, but actually, the high courts have said he is so bad, the Major League Baseball was right not giving him playoff games. Oh, yeah. Remember Eric Gregg? Remember
Oh,
Eric Gregg?
big
Remember
Eric Gregg. Yes, I do.
his strike zone was, oh my God. Oh, yeah. Aaron Reed. Aaron Reed just got on there. I played a Japanese baseball video game. All the NES games, everyone, including RBI, if you listen to their baseball background music, they're all baseball Japanese chants without the Japanese stuff in the background. But like RBI baseball, that do, and then when you get people on base, that do like that, those are all real Japanese chants, but they don't have words to them. But they made it into all the NES games because all the NES games start out as Japanese baseball games. RBI was Pro Stadium Baseball, and Bases Loaded was Bases Loaded. Jellico was a Japanese company anyway. So they just Bases Loaded. That's why it's called something funny. But yeah. Oh, Big Clue. Yeah, I they broke into ESPN on that. Big Clue just talked about John McSherry. And now they have that was after John McSherry, all the sports
That was
put in.
sad. That was sad. Oh
Oh,
my
oh my
god.
God, yeah. All the sports put in health standards because before that, all the sports referees, they were average people that you're picking off the street. In baseball, when you work a 4-man rotation in baseball, the only person that moves is second base. They're
Hmm.
outside. They're outside when nobody's on, and then they're inside. But once you're inside, see, you don't even run into 2-man. It's very little because the sport you run in is softball. These
Right.
old people do softball and go, "Oh, I'm old. I'm doing softball," and they're running their butt off, going, "Ah, I never." Yeah, because you got to go in to out to in,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, Eric Gregg's strike zone was you had home plate, you had a home plate to the left and a home plate to the right. And if it hit one of those 3 home plates, even on the corner, that was a strike. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, he was. Oh, his strike zone was, you know,
Jeez. Do you
makes
want
me.
to?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, 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 man. Go ahead. Finish up, please. Finish
I was
up.
going to say, when you look at umpiring, you know, I part of me, I look at the game and I know I'm gonna argue with a lot of the people here about the pitch clock. We're gonna argue about robot umpires.
Right,
To me, the pitch clock, and this is all I'm only say this once. I understand everybody has their different opinion.
right.
The pitch clock makes them play like they played in the past.
Hmm.
But in the past, it was throw the ball, get it back, get ready to go, throw the ball, get it back, get ready to go, a couple pick moves. What the players did was they kind of just milked it and they kept rearranging their straps to their hands. If they didn't do that, then I would be against the pitch clock. I'm like, what's the big point? You know, everybody's throwing the ball. It's okay. It's like games in the 70s that were 8-6 games took 2 hours and 30 minutes because they had one pitcher or two or three total for both the teams. They threw a pitch, got it back, boom, got it back, boom, got it back, boom. The only thing with the umpires is now every game is televised. When me and you were little Beatles, remember only like 60 pirate games were televised? And
Yes.
remember on KDKA, you'd turn on for pirate highlights, it'd be this grainy footage, like the show Cops.
Yeah.
And it's like the show Cops, it's like they're peeking behind a brick wall going, today, Pittsburgh played in Montreal. And they'd hit the ball and there's nobody there. And you hear the fake crowd noise they used to pump in there. And it never changed. So the Pirates would get a run, and it would just be the Expos would get a run like that, and then like that, and then it was like all grainy footage, and they would always get the name wrong. Here's Andre Dawson, and they show Gary Carter,
Yes.
and I'm like, how the hell do you mix that up? How the hell do you mix that up? And
Oh,
then there'd
man.
be like a head, and it would be like sometimes they wouldn't get footage and they'd sneak in. It was like the last time they played in Montreal, and they would just find whenever there was ace hit by somebody. So, like, look at this 3-run home run. They hit a home run. You see there's no, and you're like, oh, there's nobody on base. Where the hell did the other runs come from? Yeah, it's
I
like,
remember there was when I was a kid. So when I was lucky enough to catch, because we're one of the families in the block, we had all the channels and stuff like that. So a and I don't know if you're so Johnstown, right? So Johnstown's sort
oh
of near
yeah,
Pittsburgh. So I used to when I was a little kid, I would watch baseball on WJAC, and they actually did pirate games, right? It was awesome. But again, you didn't get every Bucko game. It's we're living in a golden age here. But for
yeah,
umpires, that puts them really in the right in the microscope because there wasn't talk about this stuff. So I'm just going to make one comment about the pitch clock. I'm not
sure.
against it. The rule change I don't like though, which I think puts a team at a disadvantage, is I think the pitcher still should be allowed to throw over to first because you get a good base runner, he's going to know, all right, after what is it, 2 or 3 throws over, I can just go. So that rule I disagree with. The pitch clock, I was against it till I saw a minor league game earlier this year, and I think I'm supposed to go to one tonight. I have no idea. And I'm watching. I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool because again, so Legend Sports Universe, of course, there's a little bit of. I'm just picking out Nomar Garcia Parra. I mean, God, who
No,
here doesn't remember Nomar Garcia Parra's?
human rain delay.
Oh my God, it was terrible, right? So the pitch clock is okay. I don't like the rule with limited throwovers to first because I know they want to encourage more stolen bases, but that's kind of cheating it. That's the only thing. As far as some of the other rules changes, you know what? They're here. I'll live with them. Ghost Runner's got to go. MV, I don't know when you're going to tune in, but the Ghost Runner is stupid. So,
Well, here's
boom.
my thought on that. You can get rid of the ghost runner now that you have games under 3 hours. The reason why they put the ghost runner in a couple years ago, they didn't have the pitch clock. So they said, all right, games are 3 hours, 20 minutes. If they go 11 innings, they're going 4 hours.
Right.
We got to make sure these things go 12 or 13. Todd B, they have scantily clad ball girls in Korea. They
All right,
do,
that's
and it
it.
helps.
That's
It
it. I'm
helps.
going to Korea. That's it.
There we
Forget.
go. There we go.
I was thinking about
Um,
going back to Ireland, but if they have that in Korea, I'm going to Korea. Forget
yeah,
forget Ireland. Yeah.
it's but now they don't. But my thing is this: I don't mind playing 10th, 11th inning normal. In a regular season, though, that's the one thing is because if you're playing it in all fairness, then you would just play the regular extra innings because you can do it now with the pitch clock and all that stuff.
Sure.
But now that it's pro sports and a lot of pro sports doesn't make sense. Like, why the hell is Pittsburgh and Cleveland not in the same division?
Exactly. Big
Why
Clue
did,
had Big Clue actually did in our Discord. You'd have to go back and dig it. But he talked about in a broadcast one and did this geographic realignment of baseball that made absolute sense and would really build the fan base. So please continue. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
Pittsburgh and Cleveland, they're 85 miles from each other. Come on. It's
What
nothing.
one of the things I want to do is I want to do replays with Action PC Baseball and make geographic divisions in like the 70s and the 80s, geographic, like real geographic divisions like they have today.
Hmm.
They're 26 teams, so it would be a little different, but you'd have 3 5 team divisions or 3 5 and 4 like the old NF ball L league.
Right.
And what you would do is you'd make it all geographic, and then in the 80s you'd have the Pirates, the Indians, you'd have the Pirates, you'd have the Indians, you'd have the Phillies, you'd have the Orioles, all in one in the 80s because there was no Washington Nationals. So so it'd be the Expos, the Blue Jays, and New England, hell, Boston, and whatever. And you would have all them, and that'd be great. But as you know, it does like baseball, it doesn't make sense because the Pirates one year had the second best record in Major League Baseball.
Hmm.
Second best.
Yep.
And they played a 1 game playoff. The winner of that was going to the World Series because I think St. Louis had injuries.
Hmm.
And San Francisco won the World Series. It's like,
Yep.
what the hell? It's like,
I was
so
I
I
was
always,
living I was living in Holland at the time. I remember that watching that game at 2 in the morning. I remember.
oh,
Whew.
see, that's the thing. It's now, I always said, now you got money in baseball.
Oh yeah.
Just make it one national. And I even said this, why even have a national and American League? Yes, I know about the history,
Yeah, but
but
it doesn't mean anything anymore. They used to
yeah,
be
exactly.
autonomous, but there's no that now it's just a label. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like we're losing great World Series matchups because if you have two of the best teams in the same division,
Hmm.
I mean, all you'll get is an NLCS. That's why we said the dumbest league in the world doesn't mean they're not the most profitable. The dumbest league is the F-ball league because how many times in the 2000s did they miss out in a Brady versus Manning Super Bowl? Super Bowl, 2 weeks of Brady versus Manning. Brady versus Manning. Think of all that media. There have been about 4 or 5 S bowls where
Hmm.
you'd have Brady versus Manning. Bam, bam. Why? Because of a freaking 1970s AFL, NFL sort of fight. I'm like, no, why don't you like baseball now? People love baseball. They love their teams. There's history in the teams. The leagues have kind of gone to the side, but the teams still have history. So why can't
Absolutely.
New York and Boston play in a World Series?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that'd be wonderful.
Oh, moving
Or
forward, by the way, so the official term on this channel for that game and that sport is the Stupor Bowl. So there you go.
the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, because it is. It's I've somebody once said, and I always love this quote, right? So Super Bowl, or right, so F-ball fans at the end of their big game talk about the commercials, baseball fans talk about the World Series. So to me, that's a huge distinction. So that's what I do. I call it the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
But continue. I Because I used the term S Bowl, Super Bowl. Go for
yeah.
it.
Well, if you look at my channel over the summer, when I'm back at home in Pennsylvania, I have a computer that still uses freaking punch cards. So
Oh
I
wow.
can't do any announcing or whatever. I
Right.
got a tic tac toe. No, 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 no. Oh, one's out of whack. One punch card is out of sync. So that screws the whole thing up. But I have an old computer. So what do I do? And I sit back and I watch a lot of games.
Sure.
But what happens is, like, I made those deep fakes, those 1970s news broadcasts where I kind of made fun of I would do a game, and then what I would do is I would make like a 1970s news broadcast, and the announcer, and I started to give him a lot of like character and all that stuff. But I had a British guy, and when he
Love those.
reported on the NFL,
Hmm.
he would make fun of it by not understanding. He's like, in a sport where they have two championship games, but no champion coming out of those games, the second best record in the league has to play on the road at a 9-7 team, and their championship game is named after something in a Will Ferrell movie that they would have, like in his movie Semi Pro.
Right.
Hey, go blah 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 like that, and so let's see. Jason Stark defending this balanced schedule by claiming best way to promote the game biggest stars. See, that's
That's crap. That's just that is the worst defense of this abhorrent. This I can't. I don't even have strong enough words for the balance. Right? Because divisional play means nothing now. It means nothing.
you get three wild cards, yeah, and divisional play, it doesn't make sense because the AL Central is going to get a team, and they're going to be barely above 500, and
Yep.
they're going to have a home freaking series.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's stupid. Just make one division. Or how about this? Now you play everybody. Just make one Major League Baseball, 30 teams, 29 teams. You play a home series, an away series versus everybody. And you backload like the teams that are really good. If you're really good, you backload those series to the end of the year. So you have pennant races and stuff like that. Something to that effect. Or how about this? If you're going to F ball got hell in the early 70s for doing a smart thing. They understood that you're not going to have the same play. You're not going to have the same schedule. So what they did was they put everything on divisional rotation, and they hunkered down and blah, blah, blah. And they had meaningful games, division games, and all that stuff.
Right.
So they did divisional rotation. That's why the undefeated Dolphins had to play at Pittsburgh for the AFC Championship game, because they had divisional rotation. The Dolphins played a much easier record. Now, all of a sudden, you put the Seattle Mariners playing 35 division games, because there were only 4 teams in that division,
Hmm.
against the Texas Rangers under 500.
Right.
The California, I think there were still California Angels back then. Anaheim was 02. So
Hmm.
01, I think it was California Angels, 01. And then they had, what else? Who was the other team? The Oakland A's.
Oakland. Right. Oakland A's, soon to be the Las Vegas A's. Right.
Yeah, the year before Moneyball, when they kind
Hmm.
of, well, they were all right. But it was, I forget when the Mariners did it, but they played all those games against Texas Ranger team and the Angels team. And then you go to the AL East back then, and you had the Yankees, the Red Sox, the
Yep.
Orioles that were just trying to go. You had all, and the Blue Jays, who in the early 2000s were really good. They just couldn't win a freaking playoff game.
And look what we had in the 70s, right? I mean, and let's go
Oh,
back here because you and I are Pirates fans. We have 2 Reds fans in here. What about the legendary matchups in the 70s? And I mean, the Pirates and Reds slugging it out all season, Chris. I mean,
yeah,
right? I mean, and like, so, I mean, I had to look back in those in terms of history. I wasn't there for that, but I mean, you're reading about that, watching videos about that, and there's not that same thing now in baseball. Which I'm not saying. Well, I am in a way saying turn back the clock a little bit because you knew every year. So 1975, we got steamrolled. Well, 1979, we came back, and while we didn't steamroll the Reds, we did take care of them, and we won the World Series. But except for 1973, right, with Roberto Clemente gone, so that was the only year in the 70s decade that the Pirates finished below 500. Every other year we were in contention, and we were battling out with the Reds. We were battling out. We had some tough Phillies teams in the National League East, and of course the Giants were always around. Today, man, it's like what nothing means anything. I'm looking at this American League East race, for instance, right? So Tampa Bay, um, you know, and now so Baltimore's on the top. But it's like there's not the same sense of excitement about the pennant race, and even prior to this year's balanced schedule. Like I'm going to say something that's crazy. I think 2022 baseball was better than 2023 baseball. Even you know what I'm saying? It's just
I I
it's
do. Well,
losing the thing that makes it great. And like I think somebody said, I don't know. I think it was big. It was Todd B. A few nights ago. The and please disagree. Feel free, anybody. But I think one thing baseball needs to do to bring it back is to embrace what made the game great, and that's its history and its rivalries. We were talking last night, Chris, about the great rivalries in baseball. Of course, the biggest one, Yankees and Red Sox. But then there's also, my God, there's the Giants and the Giants and the Dodgers, right? All this started in New York, right? We have Cubs Cardinals, right? We have these great rivalries, and
yeah.
now all those rivalries they've become sort of city rivalries, and it's not the same thing. So yeah, Yankees. I've heard one Red Sox fan actually forgive Bucky Dent, one,
Well,
and that
you're
was a Red
you're
Sox
you're
fan.
missing
You
one
know,
of the biggest rivalries that actually happened, and this was really weird because it only lasted 10 years. Was in the 1950s, the Cubs and the Braves. The
hmm
Milwaukee Braves never had a losing season in Milwaukee,
right?
and when they played the Cubs, it was because Milwaukee and Chicago are what, in a 2-hour drive, 3-hour
And they are
drive from
not
each other.
fans of each other. Exactly.
They
Yes.
hate each other, and in every other sport, they hate each other, and
hmm
it's like, so that happened, but you're right. That's the thing. Baseball did a very bad job. Well, also too, what has happened too in baseball is this, and I'm going to catch hell for this, but one of the things that F ball has going for it, football is going for it. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
No, no, you can say
Um,
the name. It's all good.
Football has going for it is look at the rivalries in football.
Pittsburgh,
Pittsburgh,
Cleveland. Pittsburgh, Cleveland.
Baltimore,
Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Another one. Yeah.
Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Pittsburgh,
Yep.
Cleveland, Chicago, Green Bay,
Yes. I know enough
Denver,
about
Kansas
F-ball to know
City.
about these rivalries.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Washington, which is a very small market, versus Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
What is the key? Is your major rivalries in the sport involve small market teams.
hmm
One, because they're marketed that way, but two, the structure allows teams to hold on to people that are good. Now, yes, but you have a salary cap. That's the thing.
Yes.
And you get your baseball knowledge, you get X amount of money, and your
hmm
baseball knowledge, your football knowledge determines whether you're going to suck or whether you're good.
Right.
So you see the Patriots dynasty and all that. If that
hmm
were baseball, they would have had a good team for 3 years, and Tom Brady would have been a New York Giant.
hmm
And I think that's a problem with baseball is it's to a point. Remember, perception is truth. So
Yes.
people that put in stats like, well, X amount of people or X amount of teams come from markets that are low, perception is truth.
Yes, it
So, oh,
is.
well, the New York Yankees are the worst team right now. They're what, 60 and 65. Their perception is truth. Perception is, all right, well, they have the ability to wipe everybody out and buy people from other teams.
Right.
That's a perception, even though they're kind of screwed for the next 10 years,
May
which
I ask
is
you a
kind
favor,
of nice.
Chris? Uh,
Sure.
if you don't mind doing the broadcast for a little bit, I've got to take care of some things. I'm going to be right back as soon as I can because I actually want to get run this a little bit longer. If you don't mind, if you're hanging out.
All
But
right.
and so this way we're not rushing off. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of taking the helm a little bit, I'm going to leave everything running, and I'll be back in a few minutes, guys.
All right. I'll talk
It,
about my internship.
dude,
Uh,
have fun.
yeah.
Just no, this is no holds barred. And again, this channel is not rated for kids. So,
Oh, good. Let me tell you about my
right,
last trip to Bangkok.
exactly. So the only thing is,
Yeah.
of course, and the guys in the chat know this, just to be careful because YouTube will still look at chat. But as far as what you have to say, have fun, man. And I'll be back in a few minutes, guys. I'm sorry about this. Just some weird life stuff, but I'll be back very, very quickly. Chris, thank you and have at it, man. All right.
Sure, sure,
It's your
sure.
show. It's your show. All right.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. When I worked my internship at KDKA, and I was in the sports department. So it was 2002. I believe that was a Moneyball year. And it was my job to go over to PNC Park and hold microphones in front of people's faces and this and that. That's where I met at the Lemieux Classic. The Mario Lemieux had a golf outing and all that stuff. I heard Mike Eruzione tell a joke. Oh, I'll tell you a Mike Eruzione joke. I'm going to tell you a Mike Eruzione joke. I'll tell you a Mike Eruzione joke. And please let me know if you get it by giving me a thumbs up if you like the joke or tell me he's full of crap. This is straight from Mike Eruzione's mouth. There's a kid, he goes into school. His teacher goes into school. And the teacher tells her class, hey, we're going to learn about logic today. She goes, I got something behind my back. It's yellow, it's long, and it has a tip. Well, Ernie in the back goes, I know what it is. I know. She goes, hell no. No. Sally. She goes, is it a banana? And she goes, no, it's a pencil. But I like how you're thinking. Now I got something behind my back. In my other hand, it's round and it has a stem. It's round, it's red, and it has a stem. Ernie in the back, I got it. I know. No. Jimmy, it's an apple. She goes, no, it's a cherry. But I like how you're thinking. Finally, Ernie in the back raises his hand. He goes, hey, Teach, I know. Teach goes, hey, Ernie, what do you want? Ernie goes, hey, and he puts his hand in his pocket and it goes, hey, Teach, I got something. It's round, it's hard, and it has a head. The teacher goes, get out of here. Get to the office. Get out of here. Don't even look at me. Ernie pulls out his hand and goes, look, it's a quarter, but I like how you're thinking. Oh, that was a Mike Eruzione joke. I heard that when I worked my internship at KDK. They had the Mario Lemieux Celebrity Golf Classic, and they had the Russian figure skaters that kind of got screwed and blah, 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 blah. They had them there. They were about like 5'1". I remember looking down going, what the hell? They look like they're 6 feet on TV. I'm like, oh my God. It's like, that's it? If you ever seen figure skaters in real life, they're like, go to a second grade classroom. I'm serious. 5 feet. That's it, because they got to get up. They got to do the twirls. They can't look like me. They got to be able to do that stuff. I saw a couple gymnasts there. I'm like, oh my God, are they still in middle school? But there they were. I forget who they were. That was 2000, around like the 2000 Olympics. It was the 02 Winter Olympics. That's why they were there in the summer of 02. But it was the 2000 Olympics. I forget who was the 2000 Olympics, because they were famous. You know how gymnastics is. You're famous every 4 years, and then good night. You know, it's like, who are you again? But anyway, they're 4-year sports where you look at it and you go, hey, this is who the hell are you again? Like after every 4 years, like equestrian. I don't know. Equestrian's like once every 20 years. But anyway, that's where I met John Elway. And I had to, there was a big John Elway fan when I worked at a hardware store. And he goes, ask him the question if he was ever overwhelmed. So I go, hey, Mr. Elway, I just have a quick question for you. It's off the record. It's whatever. When you were in the NFL, was there ever one time when you were overwhelmed, you looked around and said, oh my God, I made it. Holy God. And he goes, yes, my first game. Exactly what he said. Yes. And then I go back and tell John, the Trader Hornet, I go, hey, John, he said this. And he goes, that was his first game was 1983 in Pittsburgh. Denver at Pittsburgh. That was his first game. He goes, I was there. He still had the original terrible towel, the one that wasn't yellow. It was like this weird color. And it didn't even say terrible towel on it yet. So those were the old ones from the 70s. So anyway, I worked my internship, and I remember the A's came, and that was Moneyball year. Art Howe was a Pittsburgh guy. That's the thing that people don't remember is Art Howe's a Pittsburgh guy. Art Howe went to Shaler. He was a Shaler back when it was Shaler Huskies. The thing about Pittsburgh, if you're not from Pittsburgh, is I've talked to many people who've made it, but they always remember about Pittsburgh. If you ever watch anything about Joe Namath, he always talks about Beaver Falls. But the thing is about Pittsburgh is whenever you're famous and you're from Pittsburgh, it's almost like nobody cares about you. It's like, seriously, Joe Namath won a Super Bowl and was the Super Bowl MVP. And this story is so true. He goes back to Beaver Falls. He goes back. Yeah, big clue. My God, Super Bowl 24. Holy God, yeah. But anyway, Joe Namath goes back to get his haircut after, believe it or not, he got his haircut. He goes back to Beaver Falls. And Beaver Falls, if you ever been there, it's everybody knows everybody in Beaver Falls. They don't treat him like a celebrity. This is a Pittsburgh thing. Nobody cares that you did something famous. They're going to sit there and they're going to go, they all ask this, how was Johnny Unitas? Because Unitas is from Pittsburgh. He went to St. Justin's High School, which is now gone. It's in Arsenal Middle School. But Beaver Falls, it's great. Whenever I used to referee, when I used to umpire softball tournaments, I used to go to Beaver Falls all the time. Hey, that's Joe Namath's house. And I just picked any house. I said, that's Joe Namath's house. They're like, really? And I'm like, no, that's not Joe Namath's house. But anyways, so anyway, they asked him, hey, how's Johnny Unitas? How's this? Because Unitas was so removed from Pittsburgh. Joe Montana is remembered in Pittsburgh, but he's never been back to Pittsburgh. He might have been back, but he's not. He doesn't connect himself to Pittsburgh at all. He must have had a bad time in Pittsburgh. I don't know, but Joe Montana never comes back. Dan Marino's always back to Pittsburgh, and people always ask him, hey, how was playing against Joe Montana? They don't ask him about, hey, how do you feel, or how does it? They don't care. They ask him about other famous people. Elway refused the Colts. That was 1983, and then Denver picked him up after he was traded. I think Elway went to the Yankees, and then Denver picked him up as a free agent. But anyways, Gene Kelly was a Pittsburgh guy. Andy Warhol was a Pittsburgh guy. People don't remember Barbara Feldon. Barbara Feldon went to Bethel Park High School. So Barbara Feldon, the actor, went to Bethel Park High School. I'm trying to think. Mr. Rogers from Latrobe. Arnold Palmer from Latrobe. Though that's really not Western Pennsylvania. That's kind of in the hills away from Pittsburgh. Latrobe is its own city. The Shanks League. I know. We got to wait for Beatles Eternally Back. I think sometimes he sells himself short. He's a very good announcer. Beatles Eternally is a very good announcer. He's got a great voice. During a baseball game, he's exactly what you want as an announcer. He'll keep you in. Even if the game's 18-0, you're still listening to him. And that's something you don't teach. You can't teach. And that's one good thing Beatles has is, oh, you're a Monaca. Oh, dude. Yeah, a lot of people have incidents in Monaca. I've been through Monaca a lot of times. I've had incidents in Monaca, Pennsylvania. Oh, yeah, I've had that. But that's the way. So anyway, I was in, and it was the Oakland A's. They were playing the Pirates. And, yeah, Denora, Pennsylvania, Ken Griffey Jr. Well, Ken Griffey went to Stan Musial, and Ken Griffey both went to Keystone Oaks High School, which is Denora. It was Denora High School back then. Denora, Pennsylvania, Keystone Oaks. No. I'm wrong. Ken Griffey Jr., born in Denora, But Ken Griffey went to Ringgold, the same high school as Joe Montana. So Joe Montana and Ken Griffey Sr. went to the same high school. It's Ringgold in Monongahela, Pennsylvania. So Ken Griffey and Joe Montana both went to Monongahela. They both went to Ringgold High School in Monongahela, Pennsylvania. So anyway, I went in. I remember because it was my job to go down, and the Oakland A's were in town and stuff. So they beat the Pirates or lost, I forget. Yeah. Francona's. Now, Terry Francona, I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you, when I worked my internship, I used to sit and talk every day to Chuck Tanner. Chuck Tanner from Newcastle, Pennsylvania. He was the nicest guy in the world. When I say talk, I don't know. I could never know baseball like him. I could never know baseball like Chuck Tanner. Chuck Tanner knows a ton about baseball. And whenever I sat at the same table for the media buffet as Chuck Tanner, we talked, but we talked about life. How's your life going? How's this? How's this? How's this? Wonderful guys, like everybody's grandfather. Like we talked. I look at some of the old YouTube clips of him, like in Atlanta with the strike umpires. And these strike umpires don't know what the hell they're doing. And he is going out of his skull and swearing out. I'm thinking, that's the same guy? Well, we all have our switches. So anyway, I used to talk with Chuck Tanner all the time at the table. He was wonderful, a really nice guy. We just talked about life. The quiet guy at our table, the quiet guy that year was Jim Leland, because he was a talent scout for the St. Louis Cardinals. He would go to all the Pirate games, and he would scout the Pirates, then report back to the St. Louis Cardinals about what the Pirates had. And he always sat at the table. He was only there about 4 or 5 times, but he would sit there, and he was very quiet. Like he might have said 2 words. That was it. But me and Chuck Tanner would talk. I would talk a little bit. He would talk. He was fine. He was great. He was a really nice guy. And on the other side was there's Jim Lanley. It was just eat his stuff. It was $6 for the media buffet. It was the first year they charged. Of course, back then, I was a college student. I didn't have money. $6 was like 60. So I'm like, what the hell? I worked minimum wage at a hardware store. So in between days of my internship. So anyways, we'd sit there, and then he would sit there, and I believe he lived in Wexford. He was, Wexford is north of Pittsburgh, a little bit more upscale area. A lot of your pro athletes live in like Treesdale, that kind of an area. Ben Roethlisberger lives in Treesdale. That's Mars. There is a place called Mars in Pittsburgh. So anyway, I went in, but anyway, so I was talking to him. We talked a little bit, and I said, hey, Oakland A's. And, we talked. He said something. I remember telling a story. I go, do players ever get mad at managers and like swear back? He goes, oh, yeah, all the time. He goes, Tommy Lasorda tried to take out a pitcher in the World Series one time, and he swore at him. And then years later, I found that clip on the internet of the pitcher going, oh, I could be in, and Lasorda going, well, I'm the effing manager. I'm the blah, 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 blah. He's like, I don't give a shit. 4 hits and 2 innings. We're getting you out of here. This is game 6. Go, blah, blah. But anyway, he told me the time they're in Philadelphia, and it was 11-0. And he kept the starter in. He's like, look, we can't burn the bullpen for an 11-0 game. We got a big game tomorrow against the Phillies. It's the end of the series. We got to win 2 out of 3. We won game 1. Game 2, they're losing 11-0. They're like, look, I'm not taking you out and burning an arm. And he said it was therapy. His job as a manager became therapy. That was the 79 season. It was a season they won it all. So they would go and they would just he'd throw it. He'd get down 13-0. And then back then you could visit once an inning. They didn't have the 5-visit rule. Like they did I think they put that in the 1980s, where it's 2 times in an inning you pull the pitcher. But You could only go 5 times to one guy in a game. Well, back then he was going every freaking inning, and the guy's like, "Can't be out of this goddamn thing. What the hell's your?" And he's like, "Look, settle down. We can just get 2 more outs. My arm's friggin' killing me. It's been 150 pitches." He's like, "Well, we're not burning a damn thing. I'm gonna owe you. I'll owe you. I'll owe." So at the very end, he's almost like apologetic, telling me, he's like, "Look, I'll buy you something. I'll get you a steak dinner." And then steak dinner turned out to be like a vacation and giving days off and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, which brings me back to the manager that hitters and position players, the pitchers. Pitchers hated playing for Roger Craig. They hated playing for Roger Craig. Roger Craig treated pitchers like shit. He did. He would make the pitchers shag balls, major league pitchers for the Giants in the early 80s, in the mid 80s. That's when Scott Thompson and Russell were there. Well, Russell was there a little bit later, but when Scott was there, he said that they would be hitting batting practice and batters would go pick up the balls, shag balls or whatever. He'd yell at the pitchers. He'd make starting pitchers go out and pick up the balls. He's like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, he hated it. He like the pitchers, they freaking hated him. He called every pitch. Roger Craig called every freaking pitch. And Scott said the pitchers hated that. They hated him calling every freaking pitch because they would go, they just like, what the hell? I want to throw this. The catchers were like, why the hell am I here? I'm just a cardboard cutout. And, so Roger Craig called every pitch, and and anytime something bad would happen, they'd go right to the pitcher. Hey, why'd you throw that pitch? Trying to get Craig. So I have a personal hatred for Lloyd McClendon because of my internship. I was a jerk during my internship, but it doesn't mean I can't hate. I was a jerk. Man, back when I had hair, I didn't know how to wear a freaking tie. I never wore a tie until I was like 26. Remember, I'm a bum. I came from the Appalachia. I'm an Appalachian. Okay, when you see Appalachia, you see picture of me. All right, big cheeseburger eating guy, Appalachia. I eat steak purple. Okay, I'm Appalachian. There's the tie. I don't know what the hell to do for a tie. Like that. I don't know how to wear a shirt and a tie. I was all weird. But one of the things about being Appalachian is you're extremely direct. That's from when you're born. You're very direct. And I've learned internationally that that's a very bad thing. Not with the international people, with the other Americans. If you go outside of Appalachia and you're as direct as I am, they hate you. They hate you. So I went in, and there's Lloyd McClendon. I remember Brian Bowringer. He walked a 112 hitter to get to a guy who hit 2 home runs that day, and it got Jack the third. What the hell was that about? But anyway, I still don't know. It was against the Reds. And it was 2002. So I asked, I go, what is the reason you walked this 170 hitter to get to this guy who had 2 home runs? We wanted to win. Reason is we wanted to win. And then, like a couple nights later, I never heard what he said, but he started to make fun of my shirt or something like that because it was so crooked or something like that. I'm a freaking intern, So he did that. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I just hate this guy. So I did. Yeah, I just couldn't stand him. Then he was he really was a jerk. He kind of was weird. He was real rough. I'm like,
Hey
hey,
guys,
MB, good to see you.
hey, I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. So, so here's the thing. I can't get into any detail. I got some nasty real life stuff I've got to deal with. But Chris, I'm wondering if you have some time, this would be a great way to get a bunch of people over to your channel. Hey MV, if you want to continue discussing, is this cool with you to go on maybe to your channel, or you can just stay on here? And I just can't be on the broadcast for a little bit, like for another half hour or so. So what would make you feel most comfortable?
The half
Um,
hour, I can keep talking for a half hour. Are
all right.
you going to keep back?
Oh yeah,
Are
yeah.
you
I'm
going
gonna
to
be right here. I just can't be on mic or anything right now.
Okay. As long as you get back in a half hour, yeah, and then we can wrap up in a half hour. Because
All right.
I still got to tell my art house story, and
Yes,
I've
you
been
do.
setting it up for like 23 minutes,
I
and
know. I
I've been
know.
going into Lloyd McClendon. I can't freaking stand Lloyd McClendon,
Oh, you guys
and
are gonna love
Roger
it.
Craig. The pitchers hated Roger Craig, even though he's a pitching guy.
Well,
Um,
I really appreciate it. This is stuff that's kind of unavoidable, that I do have to take care of. So if
okay, I'll
you
see
don't
you back
mind,
in a half hour.
yeah, I should be back here by 1 o'clock. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy it. This is a lot of fun. And please, if you haven't, before I go off mic again, please take a moment while Chris is talking, subscribe to his channel. And I know that a lot of times, because of the 9-hour time difference, Chris isn't broadcasting at the same time that you guys can catch him. But believe me, and most of you guys here have subscribed to Chris's channel. And pass the word around. This is a channel that, like Legend Sports Universe, is criminally undersubscribed. These guys are brilliant at what they do. They give you the immersion of listening to real sports, which is something I can't offer. And this is not my talent, but do it. Check out everything that Chris does. And Chris, I'll be back
Sure. If
in
you want to
half
bring
hour, Mike.
somebody else on here too, real quick as you leave, so
Who
we can,
wants to come on?
yeah,
I can.
whoever. If somebody
Anybody want
wants
to
to
come on,
come on
Mike?
for a half hour, they can ask me questions like I know MV and Steve Tate, Big Clue. I can't believe Big Clue played against Dan Mock. I can't freaking
Yeah,
believe that.
I think
But
if Big Clue's not I don't know if it's Steve Tate. Anybody, if you guys want to come on, I can quickly do the thing. MV wants to come on. You got to have MV. I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because yep. And ping me in for a bit if you want. So Chris, I could just probably throw this in the chat because right, the link I sent you, I think. Yeah, let me try this. If this works. Yep. All right, guys. Here is the link. I can stay here and run from the background, guys. Click on that. That should, I think, right. This should work in the chat, Chris. Right, because I just put it in there,
Yeah,
and then
yeah. What you do is you click on it, but you got to let them in.
right, and I can sit here and do that. So yeah, the two Appalachians says Big Clue. So anybody that wants to come on, I trust you. I trust all you guys. I'll be here at the computer, just not on the mic. And as you come in, I'll just bring you into the channel, and I'll be back as soon as I can. So today it's not the Beatles Eternally channel. It is Chris Slovick's other channel. My friend, thank you. It's and when I come back on, I'll say this again. It's been, and I mean this seriously, a privilege to have you on. I'm not doing this to try to build my channel. I'm trying to do this to build community among all of the channels.
What's great? I think it's working. A lot of people here are great. This is why I do it. I don't
All right.
care if
We
I
got
only
a
get.
And I got to warn you, we got a badass coming on. Steve Tate coming on, everybody. So I'm going to turn
Oh,
it over
Steve's great.
to Chris and Steve, and I'll be watching in case anybody wants to join. Just hit that link. All right, Chris, thank you. I'm going to go off mic and bring on Steve.
Sure, sure, sure. If you want me to go on camera, I can go on camera. I'll just plug in my camera.
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
up to you. I'm just, that again, your choice. But here's Steve. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's your show, it's Chris's show, and I'll be just controlling here as far as letting people in or whatever. Thank you, my friend. And by the way, bud, you and I haven't had a lot of chance to talk. Thank you for the Shanks thing. I didn't submit anything. Please just set everything up for me, CPU. I just want to have some fun
Well,
broadcasting
your
games.
team's often above 500, so maybe
Good.
you're onto something.
Yeah, maybe I am. The less I touch it, the better. All right, guys, enjoy. This is Steve Tate, Christopher Slovick, two of the greatest guys in this community, and I really mean that. Even though Steve is Darth Tate. All right.
Yeah.
And if you guys, we'll let MV and whatever. Have fun, guys. I'm gonna go off mic now.
All right, Beatles.
sure,
Thanks.
sure.
Thank
Chris,
you.
roll with your story, and then I'm going to start picking your brain and getting you headed all kinds of directions. So I
Sure,
don't
sure.
want to
Please do.
step on your story.
Oh, okay. So sorry about that. Sometimes I say I'm an enigma wrapped in enigma wrapped in enigma, and then I'll just tie all the enigmas together, and it's like, oh, there we go. And people are like, where the hell? which layer are we on? It's like trying to eat a chocolate cake, but only the icing, but not cutting through the cake. Just
You've got
taking
the
a
right
crumb.
audience for that.
That's good. That's good. So I remember after the whole Chuck Tanner thing, I'm talking to him. He was great. The best guy ever in the media buffet was Bob Uecker. This guy was a the Milwaukee Brewers radio announcer. He would come in. He would be like, F this, F that, F this. Oh, I got a story about bringing a girl back to my hotel room last night. Blah, F this. We were in New York, blah, blah, blah. Then he get on the air. Hello, I'm Bob Uecker. Ho, ho, ho. Like that. I'm like, how's he do that? How's he have that switch flip in his head? Like, I've never seen anybody flip a switch in their head like that. He's, you know, he's 1,000 billion times funnier than what he was on Major League. But if he said one of his stories on the air, like he did, it's like, oh my God. So anyway, so I go in and I watch the game versus the A's. And I'm up, and I love when you go into the media room of the Pirates, they put you in the worst area. That's the only bad place in the ballpark is where the media sits. So I still can't believe they give you stale pretzels and generic potato chips with flat Pepsi. Like, seriously, I'm like, what are you? You're trying to, like, nobody cares about you, and then you're just making like difficult. But anyway. So I go up there, and what I do is I scored the game, and that one I don't believe was on TV. So I had a stopwatch, and then as soon as they threw the first pitch, I started, and I would write a time code for the highlights because the camera guy would get the highlights. He'd go to the camera thing, then we come back, we'd match up. We're like, all right, at 48 minutes, they hit a double. Now it's 2-0. Home run, 5-0, blah, 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 blah. It's 45 seconds, whatever. So we go down and we go to the Pirates locker room first, and they, do their thing. McClendon does his thing. I always hated McClendon, so I'm like, all right, whatever. Then we go to the Oakland A's locker room, and after everybody was done, I went in to Art Howe. I go, hey, do you remember my mom's maiden name was Love? Charlotte Love. Oh, she drew things. Say, yeah, she used to draw. Because people forget that Art Howe was better at basketball than baseball. So this guy led Shaler all the way to the Fitzgerald Fieldhouse, which was where University of Pittsburgh played. That was the Western Pennsylvania championship game, which, if you know Pennsylvania high school sports, the WPIAL championship game is bigger than the state championship game because you're beating other towns and you're the best of the area. State championships kind of like, well, back then the Philadelphia schools weren't a part of it. So then when the Philadelphia schools became part of it, then you're going to get blown out by a Philadelphia school. Sure. Kobe Bryant never played for a Philadelphia school. He played for Lower Merion, which at that time wasn't in the public league of Philadelphia. It was in Lower Merion. So anyway, I go down and I go to start talking. The only thing I remember about Art Howe is at the time he was about 50, 55 years old. This was the nicest guy in the world. Moneyball, as soon as I saw that on Moneyball, I only knew the guy for 10 minutes because we talked for about 10 minutes. I'm like, hey, what are this, that, like, hey, Shaler this or whatever. Mom was there. What was it like back then? Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so not only was he like the nicest guy, he looked like he was 80. He was 50 and he looked like he was 80. When I saw him on Moneyball, you needed a lot more wrinkles and you needed a ton of chewing tobacco in his mouth. And you needed missing teeth. And you needed those red eyes that people get when they get to be 80. You know how they have their regular eyes and then their eyelids get all red? That's what he looked like. I'm like, oh my God. And I go, he's not mom. Mom's 55. She was at the time. I'm like, he's not 55. I'm like, this guy looks like he's 80. I remember, and I went home. I went back to my aunts who lived in Shaler, and because right at that time we lived in Butler, which is a long way away, so I commuted from my aunts. I used to take the bus into town. I used to walk across downtown Pittsburgh at 12:30 at night. Oh my God. People wonder where I get my running form from. Well, you do that. You just run across downtown Pittsburgh. So anyway, I ran, and then, well, Iran's a country that one day I'll sneak into. But anyway, so I went across, I would get the 1D Mount Royal back. But I remember that night I went the next morning, I went home because I used to stay to 11:30 news, watch that, and then get home about 12:10, sleep, and then go to real home and work at a hardware store, minimum wage. So I remember going to mom going, "Hey, Art, how's Art doing? It looks like he's 80. Oh, oh, I knew he played baseball. Yeah. And he did all the stuff baseball players do. And yeah. I'm like, oh my God. Moneyball did, you know. So anyway, that's one thing about Art Howe. It was there during the Moneyball. And the only thing I remember is everybody hated Jason Kendall. And Jason Kendall would go in the corner of the locker room and not talk to anybody. Nobody. Nobody went around him. Nobody was near him. Nobody wanted to talk to him. He was just by himself. And who was it? Was it Pokey Reese? Pokey Reese was kind of weird. He was kind of a jerk. He'd say, "Yeah, I'll be out in a minute." And like an hour later, he was never out they want to interview him about something nice. "Yeah, I'll be out in a minute." And I'm standing there a half hour later with the camera guy going, "This is a nice thing. He's getting nice press. Why would he?" I remember McClatchy, though. McClatchy was richer than Steinbrenner. So when he bought the Pirates, people were like, "Oh my God, this is going to be unbelievably great. You know, the Pirates are going to be just like the Cleveland Indians could have been, and this and that." And then guess what? He never spent any money on the Pirates. And I remember all he cared about, like, I remember the interview, the lighting. He was pissed because he was too, like, bright. He wore a white shirt. Camera guy screwed up. He's like, "Oh," but he never said anything because on my one rant on my broadcast, I said, "This is how power gets you. It's never the guy that's powerful. It's the assistant, the Waylon Smithers." Waylon Smith, if you watch The Simpsons, he's a good guy.
Oh,
he
yeah.
has to act like, he has to act like a jerk because it burns. Same thing with this assistant. Now, Kevin didn't like the way he looked on TV last time. Can we please tone the white down? Can we please tone the white down? Can we please tone them? I'm like, Jesus Christ, I hope that never a flood in Pittsburgh. Can we please tone the water down? So anyway, I remember that. And him and Staggerwald were talking like blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden the lights went on and he's like, so what's your next move for the pod? It was all scripted. I'm like, all these interviews are fake. I'm like, they're just friggin' fake. Like, what the hell am I doing? Like, pro wrestling's real.
What fun is that?
And this is fake. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, what the heck? Now, Aaron Reed wants in. Do you mind if I take a 1-minute break? I'm going to get water because I had a couple Pakistani Murray beers.
Oh, nice. Hey, this is a 1-minute intermission.
All right, 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to go take a 30-second number one. I'll get water and I'll be back. I'm starting to cramp because I had 2 Murray beers. Murray's a Pakistani beer. And, does it dry you out? I'll be 1 minute. If you could hold it for 1 minute.
I got to hold it for 1 minute. Now, that's a hot spot I'm on right here. But I know MV came a little late to this party and chimes in with "This is great." I myself kind of hopped in midstream, MV, and I've been entertained ever since. Unfortunately, work kept me away from the entire show, but this has been entertaining, to say the least. So glad to see you here. Oh, we got 9 folks listening to the, what we call it, the mad ramblings of Christopher Slovick. No holds barred. MV is still working, tuning in during this great time to check in. So true. Hey, and some of you here, we got to get Slovick into the next Shanks, 100%. 30 seconds. He's giving me he's popping back 30 seconds, right? Yeah, you got to go back and listen from the beginning, MV. I'm going to have to as well. But we got to get him on board. I'm looking forward. I know this is I can say F ball here. He offered up, and I'm really looking forward to collaborating with him on some of his projects he does with my 5-year F ball file with Pro Strategy. That's
Well, that
motivated me to get it done so that I can hand it off to Chris and sit back and watch him do his magic with it. That I can't get that out of my head now.
I'm back. I just
He's
got
back.
pouring water right now, and I'll be drinking it. But here we go. This is actual water / Coors Light water, but it's actually
Yeah.
water. Hold on a second. All right, I'm back. It's funny. This is the funny thing. When I was equipment manager at Pitt. If you actually go to the online to their what do you call it? Their media guide. My name is back there for being a manager for 4 years.
Nice.
And I'll tell you one of the reasons that got me back into sports. I was getting burned out of sports, but my senior year we had a freshman wide receiver named Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah. I know
he
him.
was the nicest guy in the world. Very nice, very good. And when I worked his camp in 2015 out in Arizona, because I was a teacher out there, not making much, and I had those pro camps where basically a star shows up, they do some weird things, and then the star waves and gets paid or whatever. I saw him. He goes, "Hey, I know you," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, blah blah blah." He goes, "Farley," because I used to have long hair and look exactly like Chris Farley. So I'm like, "Yeah, hey, it's good to see you." So the next day I saw him and said, "Hey, have a great day. I hope everything's good," and all that stuff. So he's very, very good. You're gonna, Steve. How long have you been into this chat? How long?
I want to say the last 45 minutes or so.
To begin the chat, we talked about 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds, and I gave 3 examples of 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds that have happened to me in the last 5 years. We had one happen tonight. Look at the chat. See the guy named Big Clue?
Yeah.
When Big Clue, when Big Clue went to Taiwan and played international basketball, he played international basketball against Taipei American School against one of my good friends that helped me get hired out internationally. And I just found that out tonight because he goes, "Hey, I went to Hong Kong International School." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I went to Morrison in Taiwan." And he goes, "Taipei American School was a rival." I go, "Wait a second. When did you graduate?" He goes, 91. And I go, "You played against Dan Mock, didn't you?" He goes, "That name sounds familiar. I played basketball." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's my 4th 1,000,000,000 to 1.
Oh my
1,000,000,000 to 1. If you listen to the beginning, I saw Dan not knowing he was in Beijing at all. And I was hired in Beijing and he was hired in Beijing. And I saw him in the middle of a 26 million person city walking on the street. I'm like, "What the hell?" I'm like, "Oh my God."
Now that we could have within our community here, what's that? The 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever? That's one. It's like a 1 or 2 degree example.
Yeah, I'm like Siberia. I'm down to 1 degree. There we go. Aaron Reed wants to get in. Do you want to let him in too?
I think Beatles was doing that. I think he mentioned that he was going to get him in here.
So I know you wanted to. One thing I want to pick your brain about a little bit was what I'm trying to do is I want to make for football. I wanted to make a state of origin.
State of origin. Yeah. So you're always coming up with good stuff.
Yeah, when you're born in Pennsylvania, because everybody has that argument. Who has the best players?
Yeah.
1 to 1 odds that I'll watch porn today. For me, that's like when you put the low number in the back. Like, yes, it's 1 to 10 instead of 10 to 1. Well, I'm in Pakistan, so it takes a little bit more to do that. So there we go. That's good. Well, you're kind of watching sports porn right now. It's kind of addictive, and your
It
hand
is.
is going to hurt a
Well,
little
that's
bit.
what I wanted to pick your brain on
Oh,
projects,
what, on
right?
porn? All right. Well,
No, well,
all right.
hey,
If
well,
you want to go
I'm
that
going to save
direction, we
that.
can.
We've got to have another topic for a future session. That could be a good one. But I'm really interested in
Cool.
some of the projects that you've got going because
Okay.
I know you mentioned that, right? And it's not easily done, but it can be done, right? But I know the F-ball one because that one's really got me curious because I've got a lot of the work done. It's just a matter of getting them into that. But what other projects out there have you got coming down the pipe or that interest you? Maybe you haven't got them ready to go yet.
Yeah, I got one ready to go. I have a football one in 2007 because one of the good things about college football is there was no playoff, and the polls are always wrong. Like they have the best team finishing fifth, and it's like, what the hell? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a World Cup format. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the first 32 teams, so the first 30 teams seeded. So 1 and 30 will be in a qualification, 2 and 29, 3 and 28, 4 and 27. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up all the other teams. The first two get an automatic bid. The third place team goes to the last chance group. Then I'm going to simulate again. The two that are the top then join the other 30. So there you got your 32 teams. I'm going to have a random drawing for the groups. I'm going to do it just like the World Cup. Random drawing, one home game, different from the World Cup. I'm going to have one. It's all an action PC. One home game, one visitor game. And one home game, one away. Then all of your knockout stages are neutral site at what's his face's Orange Bowl that he made, that field that I always use because it's great. It just says Orange Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
It has a happy orange in the middle. I'm like, that's great. And then we'll do there. So that's good. That's one project. Another project is, and I know Beatles is away right now, so I don't know if he can hear.
Well, that's why we're allowed to talk about the topic we are. I'll just note that.
Well, I'm going to finish my Creators Cup. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish a Creators Cup, but I'm going to have a few days in between that, the Creators Cup and the because I'm going to do one a night. The way I do qualifying, it's going to take about 2 weeks, which will be good. It'll be 20 minutes a night, just an update, where we're at, who's doing what. But what I'm going to do as a fill-in is I got Pro Baseball Spirits 2010. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a recreation of the 2010 season, and which I did. And it got Chinichi versus the Cebu Lions for the championship. And I'm going to do a best of 7. And I'm going to have all the trumpets and all the stuff and all the cheers and everything. And I'm going to do a Japanese series in English. And it's going to be all the cheers, all the stuff, all like that. And I'm going to have it on my channel. So if you ever wanted to see crazy Japanese baseball that sounds like college football, I'm going to be doing that.
That's great.
I want to take a little bit of NCAA 06 and go into depth in that in January. Oh, basketball. I'm going to get into basketball. I might buy Action PC. The only thing is about Action PC basketball is they don't show you everything in 2022. So you'll see the ball next to the hoop and a dunk, and then half a second later it'll be next to the next hoop and another dunk. Then another dunk.
Yeah, you're talking about court transition, full court, like more methodical transition.
Yeah, show every pass. Or, even if you do pictures or whatever, that's fine. But better flow. If it does that, I'll do a league there. But what I'm going to do is NBA 2K24 has the My Eras. So I always wanted to redo 1991-92 because the Celtics were still good. The Blazers are good. Yep. The Rockets were good. The Bulls were good. The Knicks were good. There were so many good. The Pacers were good. There were so many really good teams back then that were really fun to watch. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into 8-minute quarters. I'm going to make it high school rules. Zone defense is allowed, 5 fouls. Then you're out instead of 6, and 8-minute quarters. The only difference is I'm keeping the shot clock on. So I got that coming up. Now I got to see Maximum Football when it comes out.
Oh, I'm dying for that. I 2 nights ago, I spent some time researching some of these folks that are highlighting some of the league and the capability. I'm excited to see that for editing.
It is, but I got a great project. What I want to do is this. There's going to be people that want to make the Maximum Football into the next college football, which is good.
Yep.
But if Maximum Football keeps with its past, then I'm going to put college football into Canadian football. And I want to see Alabama, Tennessee under Canadian rules.
Interesting.
That would be.
I don't know if anybody's noticed a theme with you already, but it's taking the what if, which I think many of us that are in, I mean, there's season replay people out there, right? And I've done it. But again, it's the what if stuff that I'm getting a kick out. I know Legend Sports Universe, same thing, right? But you're taking some of the ideas that we have to whole different levels. You're bringing in like a soccer style European format to how you set it up. And now you're talking about throwing them on a Canadian football field. You don't hear people that are even doing what ifs even talking about going to those extremes.
Well, I think the one thing is whenever you do a what if league, we pay $1,000 for these computers to do this stuff. Let the computer do as much as it can. So whenever I have a college football leagues are difficult because there's 120 teams.
Mhm.
Now, I know, like I see creators like Mark Bozeman, okay, he'll go through and he'll rank everything. He has experience. He knows things of the time. He knows the teams of the time. He knows this. He knows that. Okay. He likes to do it that way, which is good because it immerses him in there. For me, when I do something like this, I want all the teams to be in it because I don't want for my league, any human element into it. I want to let the computer, because here's the thing, the way they're simmed is different than real life because they might be better or worse. They might have played an easy schedule, a worse schedule, whatever.
Yep.
So I want to let the computer do it. Just because Boise State was 11-0 doesn't mean I have to include them. What if I put them in a qualification? They go 6-5 and they're done.
Yeah.
So that's my whole thing. Let the computer do stuff. Now, I do have a World Cup coming. Regular soccer, okay? I got PES 2021 heavily modded, so it's like you're watching a game on TV. But I want to have a World Cup between the absolute worst nations on earth in football, in soccer. That's the thing. PES, MV saw it. Yes. I want to have Fiji play Tonga in a World Cup game. I want to play because that's awesome. You never get to see that.
You're bringing up an interesting thing because you'll hear a lot of people that want that approach, right? It's the opposite of what you'd think versus putting all the great folks together, or let's try to see how I can take my team out of the cellar. So you think about replays people do, where they take the worst team or their team in a bad year and try to work their way out, right? It's a similar curiosity, I think. The other thing I'll tell you, I know he's not as active as he used to be, but his name was Mark Weiss, and he was active on the boards at Action for years, and he used to do the King of Diamonds League. And it was a league where it was head to head, only about 40 games, and it was always a unique twist, meaning we're going to take teams with the best record that never won the World Series. And then the next round, it might be teams that finish at the bottom of their division, or it always had these unique twists on it that made it interesting. right? It wasn't always
Yeah.
here's the greatest teams tournament or whatever. Teams that were within one game of 500 or would be like the league. Things that just added variety that you don't normally see in the hobby.
In the beginning, I used to do the greatest this, the greatest that, but then again, I thought to myself, so what? So I have the 75 Reds against the 27 Yankees. Sometimes the Reds will win, sometimes the Yankees win. So what? So what? There becomes a point when there becomes a point when it gets boring by just doing the greatest teams. You can do it a couple times. I'm not saying,
Yeah.
but how many greatest baseball league games are there? Oh, it's another Johnny Bench versus Babe Ruth. Oh, this, oh, that. It's like, seriously, it's like there's only so much that can that's funny because I see somebody at the lower left portion of the screen, but I see Big Clue's baseball head on there.
Yeah, the Big Clue baseball head with his comment or whatever is entertaining. I love it, but I don't know
I
what it
see
means.
somebody in the background now that head has arms to it. But it's like
Oh, it's Dwayne Martz, the real Dwayne Martz.
Dwayne, how are
How's it
you?
going?
Dwayne, you're going to
guys.
force us to turn our cameras on, which is a
All
good
right,
thing.
I'm putting my camera on, so my voice might go a little crazy, but I'll put my camera on.
How's everybody been today?
We've been good. Let's see here. What do I got to do? Oh, start cam. Oh, maybe I've got a. What do I got going on? Oh, yeah, I have a nice little flip lid that covers my camera.
Oh, cool. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing good. I'm working really hard here. I just verified all the photo packs are done for Shanks. And they're ready to go. So I'm going to make all that available here on Discord later for those that want the photo pack. And then I'm going to I'll have a downloadable link to the ballpark images
cool.
if anybody wants them. What happened?
What time are you doing the game tomorrow?
That's a good question. Have not figured that out yet.
Yeah, I
And
gotta
yeah,
work
Beatles saying
tomorrow and
we
Sunday.
lost Chris. Where did Chris go? It might have been some of those the water he's drinking. Maybe he knocked his camera off the screen. I'm anxious to ask him questions because he's bringing. It's funny. He's talking about how he gets tired of the greatest, and he was offering to take some of my 5-year runs and play with them in the game. And I've thought about doing it. Legends is looking at some of my data, how I could get those teams represented in MLB The Show. Because I'm kind of interested in playing around creating in those, but I don't know whether to take a greatest decade approach or whether I do the 5-year slice. Sometimes I get torn that decades have some value, but the 5-year slice, the players have more relationship to each other in that 5-year window than when you expand it out to 10.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, and plus then you don't have the problem if somebody played 4 or 5 years with this team, 3 or 4 years with that team.
The doppelganger, yeah. Right. But yeah, I'm interested to see.
I was looking at when I first noticed your files with that. I was wondering, like with the 70s with Jackson, where you put him on the A's or the Yankees, but then I know split the years up, so it didn't affect him at all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is what I'm gonna do real quick. Sorry about this. I'm gonna go out of StreamYard. I'm gonna go out, plug my camera in. That usually works, and then I'll just come right back in. Give me about 30 seconds.
All right.
Okay.
Turn
That's
the
good.
water on. All right.
I'm glad to hear we didn't have an injury or anything over there. Have to seek medical treatment for Chris while he's doing this stuff. But yeah, the 5-year. It's a fun file to take that 5-year run with the team, but it does create issues for people that don't like doppelgangers. If you try to combine them all, into a big pool or whatever.
Right.
And in their approach, like Legends, he just says, hey, no doppelgangers. And for this person, you're going to go with the Cleveland franchise, like for Tris Speaker versus Boston, or, Babe Ruth doesn't get to be on both. So I like what he's doing. with MLB The Show, because he's really it's a single version of the player. Then we get to see them come on in certain years. So anyway, I don't need more projects, but my brain starts thinking about them. Like Chris shared, he's got all of these ideas. Yeah, I don't know what to do next. And I might need a break from baseball. I always say that. And then here comes the Shanks League, and now files to work on. And I'm already thinking about next year's draft. Is that wrong?
Yeah, that's how it works. Always does. Yep.
I keep running these sims and saying, wow, did I make any bad draft decisions, or did I just get some years, with my franchises that maybe weren't the best? You can't polish it too much.
Nah. I'll tell you one thing, Big Clue's tough if he don't get injuries. Sure.
For the first time in a sim yesterday, I had 3 teams tie for first.
I had it twice, and both of
No.
them has been in the division I'm in, that bingo league. Was
Yeah,
it the same division?
No, it was actually our league. It was the other one. It was with Clue. It was
Oh, really?
Clue, Cleveland, and Canada all tied with the same record.
Yeah, they're
one of my
the ones
replays.
that's been up top almost every time. You get a few that straggle in, but they're consistently the best over there.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's put you on the spot, Dwayne. What's your next project?
My next one is I want to get on to Out of the Park 2004 and do every World Series. Replay
Oh, that'd be
every
nice.
World Series from 03 in order.
Are you going to try to be a little bit more freeform? Or are you going to go with like the as played lineups to start each game and starting pitchers and all that?
I probably, how I do it, Steve, like I'm doing with the 61, I do the as played lineup, but I might move guys around in the order.
Okay. Yep.
But with the World Series, I'm not quite as critical. I'm mainly doing the as played lineups because I'm using Digital Diamond to play the other games. So I don't want to pitch like Jim Palmer, which he's not in 61. We'll say Neil Pappas. And then 2 days later, he actually is supposed to pitch.
Oh,
now
yeah.
I just messed up the whole.
Yeah, you're messing up
background.
all the rest and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why
Sorry.
I do it with that.
I was gonna say sorry about this. My camera's acting funny, so I'm here, but I'm a little circle that's like
Little vibrating
right
circle.
now.
You look great tonight.
Thank you. I'm in my very grayish look with my neck not connecting my head to my rest of my body.
We're talking about your projects that you've got coming up, and now I felt a little odd because I've got my 5-year franchises, and they tend to be the better teams, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, how do you see using that file if I get that done? Like, would it be tournament? Would it be maybe putting 30 some of them in a season and playing out that season? Is it
That would be what I would call a Saturday league.
okay?
So what I would do is during the year, probably in January, I would start because I hate having breaks. The thing that kills me is like when I had this Creators Cup and stuff, I went home for 2 months and all the momentum from all the people just flew away. And they're like, what the heck? Oh, this is still going,
Yeah.
They're like, Jesus Christ, how long does this take? This is like real baseball years. But I would say probably in January, I would start it. And then what I would do is every Saturday, I'd maybe build something up on a Friday, like in the, what is this? The sports simulation, the Facebook thing about the matchups of the week and stuff. And I would use the ticker to my advantage. So my broadcast would go a little bit longer. But what I would do is I would break away, show other games, highlights. And then at the very end, I would have like a Sports Center quick game by game.
Just saying I'm back really
thing.
quickly because I know Chris said half hour. It's half hour. I'm back. Oh my God, look at everybody here. So Dwayne,
Hey, what's up, Peter?
Steve, holy moly. So Chris, yeah, I mean, go ahead. I know if you have to split, you got to split, whatever, but I'm back. Thank you guys for being understanding. And this was the best ever Beatles Eternally broadcast because I mostly wasn't on it. So enjoy. I'm here now.
Now it's better. You're back.
Oh, Steve, please. Good to see you, my friend.
No, it's great to be here. No, I'm just kind of selfishly, I'm excited to collaborate with Chris and work on a project that I can hand off to him and let him, bring it to life on his broadcast and the way he approaches it. So I'm
And I'm
looking forward to
guessing.
working on that this fall.
So
Well,
yeah, I've got to get back and look at this broadcast to see what you guys are talking about, because you mentioned it, Steve, earlier in the chat. And I was really, really intrigued by what you guys were going to do, but I'm guessing you guys already talked about this in the last half hour, so I won't ask you to retread. So
Yeah, it's just basically taking, just like with Legends, I'm looking at taking some of the stuff I've done for action and
Uh-huh.
figuring out how to get that into creating players like an MLB The Show, so I can see what it looks like there and enjoy the features of that. It's
Okay.
similar to, like, Chris offering to broadcast. It'd be taking a 5-year franchise slice and creating those teams in pro strategy football.
Uh-huh.
And then he volunteered, and I'm not letting him get off the hook to be able to kind of bring that to life. So that's kind of interesting me now, is how do I take what I've done for action and maybe try to put some of those projects into these different games, and to have some fun learning a new creation system and that. And then, each game has its own strengths, right? The visuals and all the
Sure.
things like that. I'm excited to see how it would play in those.
I think that would be a great, and I know that you're collaborating with Legends, collaborating with Chris, and this is this community building. And Chris, let me tell you, man, working with Steve is really cool, but he won't let you off the hook. I'm in Shanks 3.0 because they Shanghaied me.
We've got to
Yeah.
get here's the deal. We have to get, so we met Mike Silva, who came on, that many know from the Out of the Park forums.
Oh, Mike's awesome.
Getting like him, and then
Oh
Chris
yeah.
to commit that, then we're getting people in the community. I mean, our goal, we've got 14 teams now. Our goal would be, let's get it to 16, 18, 20, 24, because the idea is it's really more about the draft and then seeing how you handled it, and then kind of managing the franchises, the selection. It's learning the research that goes along with it. Not a big commitment for those of you that have all these projects and broadcasts on your channels. Just very light commitment to really the draft night and a little bit of follow-up.
Well, you know what I like real quick here when we're talking about community? I got a notification on look, and I just subscribed to a guy who has like 9 subscribers or 10 or something like that. He only gets about 3 or 4 views, and he's a younger guy, and he's just starting out. It's Limbo Gaming, and he does a lot of San Francisco Giants stuff, but it's all baseball. See, I like that when people are younger and they're really getting into it, and they're really getting the feel of like older seasons and stuff like that. And while you were talking, I got that notification. I look, and he, just displayed another video. But I think that's one of the best things. That's why I like doing this and collaborating with people, is because, we have a real passion for the game. And I think this is the last area where people are displaying that passion, and I really love it. And if you're wondering what a league would look like, Steve, right now I'm doing that Sire 0329 league, the all-time NFL league. And I would do Saturdays and Sundays with your league, probably about 3 games for a weekend. I'd pick out 3 good ones. I'd split up the other games, because later on in the year, they're going to be 2-10 versus 3-11. And people will be like, yeah, I really want to see 2-10 and 3-11.
It makes sense. You pick the games that matter for that week.
Yeah. And then at the very, very end, I would broadcast every playoff game. So that's what I'm doing now with this Cyro 329. The good thing, though, with Pro Strategy Football is it's not an algorithm game. And what I mean by that is this. In most games, it's so hard to really get, especially with the baseball game on MLB The Show, because with Pro Strategy, every play is calculated the same way. Whenever you go to PlayStation 5 games, what happens is no longer are they like throwing pitches in the background. They throw all the stats into an algorithm. So that displays a result rather than it actually playing like the game in the background that you don't see with it all. So the physics are non-existent. It now goes. So what happens is you might have a team that's very good algorithm wise, but when you put them on the field, they suck. I wish I could find a better word, but they're terrible. And that's what I ran into basketball a couple years ago, is the basketball, the NBA 2K is the algorithm teams. They were scoring 100 points a game, 110 points. Then I put them in 12-minute quarters. They're down to 86 and getting blown out like 136 to 86. And I'm like, what the hell? But it was the game's real live versus the algorithm. So now what I have to do when I do that basketball is I'll do a game, but in the background offline, I'll have that simulating games. And what I do with the Cyro 329 League is that's on the PlayStation 2 emulator. So I got to hit tab, and that makes it go 3 times as fast. So every single game in a league and all the stats are actually played out physically in that league. But I got to go through the background. One good thing about Pro Strategy is whether you watch a game or not, they arrive at the solution, at the plays, the same way. So I don't have to play all the games in the background. I can actually play them, sim them as they go, which will make your league a lot more fun. A lot
It
more
is.
fun.
And, you're talking about a couple things here and that come to mind. And I've always said this, right? Because you're talking about the live flow of that game and in the moment. And I look at like the action games that I'm entrenched in, really. And I've always thought to myself, right, because if I could have this engine make those decisions, then it's like a game that has a cutscene in it, right? It's going to give us a visual on that chalkboard, or it's going to give us a readout after it's done its computation. That lends itself to me to then have a higher graphical presentation. So now we cut to see the result, right? Where some of the games, it doesn't really lend itself to that, right? Because you're in the moment playing it. So how is it computing all of these decisions and factors in the moment? Does that make sense?
We lost Chris.
Chris.
Let me just
Oh my
add him
gosh, I
back
lost
in.
Chris.
There he is. He's back. He's back.
Oh, good. Because
I get these stupid bright ideas because when something doesn't work, then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, what if I do this and I can get the camera working? The camera's dead. I got to say, the camera's freaking dead. It's dead tonight. Don't get up. Don't try and make it work. The camera's dead. It's dead. If you hear silence, I want you all to say, Chris, the camera's freaking dead.
All right, you
Done.
got
It's
it.
done.
You got it. I just
You
wanted to
know.
interject here. I have it highlighted here on the screen. I like what Bernie has to say. He says, I really like listening to people explain how these programs work. He said, I'm more interested in the history of the teams and players. These chats are very interesting. I was going to ask you, and I know it's hard. We were able to hook this up and maybe do this again, Steve, as we're doing with Shanks on your, with you, now Dwayne, and even the redoubtable MV. What would you guys think of maybe trying something like this? Maybe I know once a week would be a lot, but maybe just like
a
pick a
fireside
channel
chat. I think
twice
it
a
would be
month.
great.
Let's
that'd be
just
awesome.
have an old chin wag, maybe do some even, Chris, you're up, right? I mean, you're here, you're doing this. It's in the evening for you. I know you talk about having to bolt soon and everything, but MV, don't get excited that I said bolt. But just passing this around for you guys to think about. Maybe let's do this like twice a month or something, or even once a month. Have these, getting Steve, maybe get legends on here. Anybody, right? I mean, it's open. So with that
Well,
being
everybody's
said,
involved in a project, right? Even some that may not be sharing openly what they're doing. Everybody here's dabbling and working on a project. So
oh yeah,
it's always
absolutely.
interesting to hear. But yeah, I think I may look at StreamYard if this is what lends itself to the best ability for people to all join and, be able to turn on video
and it's
if
free.
they want.
It's free.
Yeah.
Can't beat it.
Oh, well, Steve, I got a project coming up and I found it. And I told myself I was going to do this, and I'm probably going to do this in March or April because then the seasons will be winding down and I have time until June. If you go to tecmo.org, they have mods for Tecmo Super Bowl. They have a Canadian football mod where it's a 110-yard field. The goalposts are on the goal line, and the end zones are 20 yards long. And I started one with the greatest ending I've ever had simulating. Montreal was playing Toronto. Montreal, with no time left, was sacked. Their quarterback fumbled the ball. Their left guard picked it up and ran it for 95 yards for a touchdown to win the game with no time remaining. I should find that and put it in the chat. But I'm thinking of doing that because it's quick, it's really cool, and I never finished the first one, and I'm ticked
Okay.
that I never finished that project. And I know it's Canadian football, but it's fun, kind
Yeah.
of.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like with, so I've heard you talk about it today, and you're thinking way outside even the normal box for people that do what ifs, like myself, right? I mean, you're talking about Japanese league stuff. Doing how about the Little League game you posted for Beatles?
I got the
love that. Oh my God,
semifinals
I love that.
tomorrow. I got the semifinals tomorrow and
Yeah.
the finals on Sunday.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think sometimes even those of us that think because I can stay in my creative box, right? It's like, oh, I get on a 5-year franchise or an all-time great, or I want to mix them this way. I miss chances to look out at some really crazier, what I'd call crazier what ifs.
So I
I
have a
think
question for all you guys, because all of us, and this is guys in the chat, and Christopher, obviously start with you since you're the one that has the big tacky circus poster up here. But this is for everybody. So Ken, if you're still with us, I don't know. I see viewership is going up, down, everywhere. It's work day. I get it. So everybody here, we do have all projects, right? I am involved in Shanks. I did say last night I was going to be the next Shanks, but yeah, it was bullshit. Of course
you
I'm
always
going
say
to.
that.
I know. But McGreevy's going to start up again soon. But I wanted to ask you guys. I'll start with Chris. So we all have a lot of projects, and certainly, we have to get deep into the nuts and bolts. Would you guys mind talking a little bit about like project management and how you sort of maintain interest in what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to burn out. Chris, maybe start with you, and then we'll just open it up to everybody, and that includes the chat as well. Yeah.
First of all, you got to know yourself. And you got to prioritize where you like the sports. So if you like sports in bursts, then you want to do something that's shorter, like a tournament. So soccer, I like in bursts. So what I'm going to do is something that lasts less than a month. That way, by the time the novelty wears out, I'm in the playoffs, and then it's a big game. Then bam, I'm done. The feeling you want at the very end of the project is, damn, I wish I had one or two more games. Like, you want to have one or two more games when you're done. If you're doing your final game and you're like, shit, yeah, okay, they win the World Series, I don't care, thank God it's over, then you burned yourself out. So I think you got to know your sport. The second thing I think you have to do is make it able to be followable by people too. Because
Could you
the other people
could you expand on that? So Christopher, the followable. Can you maybe give me a little definition for you what that means?
Sure. If you go into sports sims, the Creators Cup is followable because you'll take a look at. I'll have the game of the day, but then I'll have a link to my Creators Cup Facebook page where I put all the box scores, and in Out of the Park, when you make a box score, it gives you a synopsis of every game.
Right.
So when you're taking a look, I'll just read a quick one from Game 6. It says, Mets heading to the semifinals. All playoffs end with joy on one side and despair on the other. Today, the New York Mets are the ones feeling overwhelmed. They won 2-1 at Shea Stadium, and they win the series 4-2. It's a very simple one, but a lot of times they'll have fake quotes in them. It's like you're actually picking up a newspaper and reading.
Nice.
And it's very interesting. So you don't even have to watch any of my videos. You can scroll through the box scores like you get up, you're at work, you don't even need to watch my videos. You just click on the stats. You're like, I wonder how Creators Cup is doing, and you just flip through the box scores. Let's see, click, where the Pirates doing. Okay. Let's see where all the stats are. Oh, okay. Well, the Pirates are this, blah, blah, blah. And then you go on. If you make it followable, I think followable, I think the energy the people bring, because then what you'll do is you'll get repeat people coming back going,
Nice.
hey, I can't wait. It's like working out. When you have a workout buddy, it's easier.
Oh yeah.
It's easier because then it's like, hey, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I can't wait. And then you get that thing in the back of your head, well, I am making somebody's day a little bit better. People are listening.
I
Which
love
is
how you
really
keep
cool.
coming back to that, Chris. Making people's day better. I really, really, really love how you keep coming back to that point over and over again.
Well, I think we're, in a way, we're a little bit entertainers, but in a way, we're doing a lot of labor of love here. Like
yeah.
I watched Dwayne Martz
sure.
forever now, and he's on there, and he's
Dwayne's
taking
awesome.
time out. Dwayne's great. I love his season 1961. He's doing that stuff. I only root against him when he's playing the Pirates. But
Well, he's playing two teams, and Dwayne, don't take this personally, but I love your replay, but I hate the Braves and the Yankees. Just saying. And I still watch you, dude.
Gives you a reason to watch
just
so
so
that
you
you can
know,
root
Chris.
against them.
Exactly.
so
Exactly. But it's a shitty season for the Pirates in 61. So,
yeah.
anyhow.
Yeah.
My biggest flaw is when I do this stuff, the interactivity, like I get so immersed in the game that of stats and this and that and blah 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 blah. I get so immersed in the game that people say hi to me, and I feel like sometimes I get afraid that I'm being rude and not saying hi back. But I'm so slammed into the game, like, okay, it's 3rd and 6. They're up by 2 games in the standings. There's 3:20 left. Blah 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 blah. They have 100 yards. That when I do that, I'm like, because on my computer setup, I physically have to click out to take a look. It's not right there on the screen. It's like 2 windows back. So whenever people type and say, hey, Chris, how you doing? Sometimes on the broadcast, look at it and go, crap, I didn't say hi to MV. I always say hi to MV. That's like, it's like waking up in
You're
the
the
morning,
only
got an
one.
alarm clock. Hey, MV, how are you?
You're one of the few.
You're one of the
Oh,
few,
there-
Chris.
But it's but when I do that, it's a little bit of that. And I do have a couple personal projects. I think you need to have projects that are personal and near and dear to you.
Sure.
And I think because you might get smaller viewership on that,
Mhm.
but the viewers will be more diehard. Because I do soccer, and I might get 8 viewers for the final or 6 viewers for the final. But I know those 6 to 8 viewers are like diehard. Thank you very much. I watched every game, blah, 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 blah. And the funny part is, Bernard, when I don't know how many of you followed me in the summer when I did those fake news broadcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they was awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I use for the filler, ChatGPT was good because for the filler, like the blah 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 stats, picking out things, blah blah blah. And then I looked at it, I edited that, and then what I did was, MV, I'm gonna put Peru in the next one. You love Peru, it's coming, it's coming. But anyway, so I did ChatGPT, but what I would do is I would edit it a little bit, but I would then insert the comedy bits. Like when I did the 1960s and I said, your wife for her birthday would love a vacuum cleaner, so buy her a vacuum cleaner. And it's so nice
that was hilarious. I'm like,
yeah,
what
it's
is
so
going
nice
on?
you could get one on her wedding night. Like 1960s, the parody of the era. They actually said that.
They did.
Yeah,
So
I
I'm
watched
like,
them in
all
the
right.
commercials.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, let's do that. But the ChatGPT is good because of the filler. All you do is cut and paste the box score in there, and it'll give you a generic thing and whatever. And you can make it say fake quotes, which is good. I mean, if you're doing a league, I mean, they didn't really play that game, so you can make them say whatever the hell you want.
Right.
So I know. So it's, they can. So that in there, and I filled it into a news broadcaster, and I had some anachronisms in there. Like I had the 1970s guy trying to sing the Tecmo Bowl song. He's like, yeah, it reminds me when Tecmo Bowl, when you turn the game on, it was a game that went be doop 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 be doop doop, like, and the guy came out so horribly wrong. Beats the blades of steel guy, swing like that. Yeah, so it's when I do it, it's you gotta have, you gotta know yourself. You got to know, because if you don't like a sport and you like it a little bit, don't do a season. You'll burn yourself out and you'll be like, oh shit, I still have 25 games to go.
Right.
If you love a sport, then you can go into depth because of it. But if you like a sport, do something where every game is meaningful and you have eliminations within 2 or 3 games. If you try and do, let's say football's mediocre. Well, if you try and have like 4 games a week and blah, 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 by week 6, you're going to be like, I'm burned out. I don't care about play. I just zoom in, and it'll affect your broadcast. My biggest flaw is last year, and sometimes I would get 3 or 4 leagues going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just like, all right, I just want to, I get burned out. I'm like, what the hell? I don't want to. So I'm limiting myself to 1 broadcast a day. So the Creators Cup, that's why I'm spreading this out.
Well,
The Creators
I
Cup
don't
will
know, Chris,
finish.
if you were around a few years ago, and so some of you guys know this. If Ken is here, he will remember this certainly. When Earl from Delaware did a Cards and Dice 1980 replay Phillies, and he'll be the first to tell you
He was
that
on last night talking about that.
right, Dwayne, you remember it. And
Yeah.
it was like, it was really taking his toll. He was burning out. He finished it to his credit, but it was like,
Yeah, labor of love is, I think, what I heard Chris say, right? Because it is, and when the labor overrides the love, that's where it hurts.
yeah, I mean, props to Earl for finish it, but it's like, oh my God, it was almost painful at times. It's like, Earl, my God, just give it a break, play some F ball or something. I don't know, but Earl, such a good guy.
My African Cup Finals was just perfect enough. This was 3 years ago, and it's one of my first videos, I think, on YouTube, because the final was a game it was Mali, Algeria. And the game started out 3-0 Algeria, and I'm like, that's a freaking blowout. Then Mali came back, tied it. Algeria went up in the 86th minute, 4-3. Mali tied it at 4. They went to extra time. Algeria scored to make it 5-4. Mali tied it at 5. And then they scored with a minute to go to win it 6-5. And that was the final. And I remember going out of my skull. This was when I was living in the jungle in Thailand at the school. We had boarding kids that didn't know what the hell was going on in my apartment because I was screaming so loud you could hear it across campus. These kids were all lined up looking at my door going, what in the hell's going on in that room? And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like this, like what in the world, blah, 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 this. And it was absolutely insane, but it was just enough because after the game, I remember thinking, damn, I wish I had another few because I'm really into it now. And that's the way, the feeling I want when I'm done, where I still want to do something, but I know it's over. Then I know just the right length.
And I think that's the issue that I have for me, right? Making them meaningful, because so like McGreevy, because McGreevy, my God, that ending, we couldn't have scripted it. That was crazy. It was like between 4 teams coming down the line, and Ken Castro just giving us a master class on how to manage in that era, but also what we're doing in Shanks and stuff. So those are fun. But like, now I'm trying my hand, because it's like, if I'm gonna, make an assertion, and again, I've already said to Steven Legends, yeah, I got to eat crow about some things I might have said a couple weeks ago. But for me, this challenge of like, messing with these season replay ideas, I'm doing one offline completely, 1949 Brooklyn Dodgers, but now I've got something going on with 1934, 1941. To be honest with you, I don't know that I'll actually go all the way through with those. I'll probably sim out most of those as opposed to doing them online, because the challenge for me is, how do you even make on what we're doing on here? Certainly off, right? So for Ken, his bats, the bats thing that he's doing in APA, that's meaningful for him because he's doing it. It's amazing he can keep up with it. But I'm thinking, holy shit, 1934 Cardinals. There's only so many stories I can tell about the Gas House Gang Cardinals. and over 154 game schedule, I as opposed to something like McGreevy or something like our Shanks League or that Ken Castro tournament that I did. Those are a little bit more bite sized and make more sense to me than trying to. And again, Dwayne, what you're doing, I mean, you're doing it like a demon, buddy, streaming like a demon. Part-time rapper here, right? So we're getting Braves, we're getting Yankees, and you're doing it, and you're sustaining interest. And man, I applaud you for that because I
Well, I
don't
think
think
most
I'm going to
people
be able
though,
to do
Ken,
this, man. What's
Beatles
that?
is if you're getting into it, they might not have a care in the world if the Yankees beat Boston today or whatever, but they're like, man, that dude's really into this crap. Let's see what happens today. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Sometimes they're
Yeah.
watching just to see what happens with you and what you're
Yeah.
doing more
If
than the
you're
game
not into
itself.
it, nobody else is going to get into it.
Yeah,
And I think, like, I stumbled across Beatles channel, and what appealed to me, I'm like, oh, this guy's really into what he's talking about here, and I love this stuff too, so I'm there. Same thing with Dwayne.
Yeah.
Same thing, and I'll say Chris. I remember when I'm listening to Chris, I'm like, even if you're not a sports fan, you're like, wow, this guy's amped up. He's into
right.
him. They're drawing you in, and then you're like, oh, this is the stuff I like too.
So yeah,
So
he's
they're
Kurt
packing
Gowdy.
Sandy
He's
Hills
Kurt
up
Gowdy
with
on
that.
steroids or speed.
yeah,
whatever.
if you're doing what you like, there's a better chance people will gravitate towards it at least enough to figure out if they can connect, right? And but I agree with what everybody said about, but I'm not really in the same mode as you all are, where you're streaming active projects. I'm behind the scenes creating, just trying to figure out how to even get some of my projects out there where I could broadcast with them. If it wasn't for Shanks League, or I know Beatles took some of my 5-year stuff and started playing games with them, I wasn't really doing that. So the Shanks thing has kind of allowed me to pick up some of that broadcast role with that project, because that's an area that I haven't really, thought of or been doing. I've been more behind the scenes having fun, crunching numbers, and now I'm like, oh gosh, there's a whole community of sports sim nerds like me out here that I'm not crazy and that care about all this stuff and that. So to me, it's just opened up different ideas for other projects. But I agree. It's like, and I think, okay, would I take one on full season? Certain sports, maybe that's not as bad as others, or do you take it on as a tournament?
I'll
Right.
tell you another thing too I like about it, Steve. Just a pure selfish thing. I talked to Beatles before. Back in the '80s, me and my buddy Troy Carter did the 1984 NFL season. Played every game. One of us didn't have PCs to replay, but
Yeah.
just to use this for historical value and go back and say, you remember that game in week 3 between this team and be able to click a button and see it? That is so awesome.
Oh,
Because I did a
exactly.
79 NASCAR season, and the best race I've had so far was a Charlotte race. Richard Petty and Cal Petty was in the race. Richard is in this middle group, and if you know what that means normally on the last turn you ain't got a prayer to win the race, but they got this star quality that gives them 2 chances so they can get to the top group, and then they possibly could get the lead. Cal Petty is behind his dad, so you go in reverse order. That way the highest driver has a better shot at winning, and you don't have the 30th place guy take the 12th place guy back. So Cal Petty's like in 13th, gets up to the top group in the top 5 or whatever, and then gets the lead. And then Richard comes, gets into the top group, and knocks his boy out of the lead. It was, and like I say, you can go back anytime you want, click at and watch that. It's just a pure selfish
And then you
reason
think
and a
about
way to
some of
do
the
it.
stuff we played in the old days, like I say, where I had my stats and my pencil out, and I'm
Right.
keeping all that. And
I
I
had the
think that's why
notebooks.
I haven't gravitated back to cards and dice for many of the projects I do, because I'm creating stuff from scratch, and Actions Engine lets me do a lot of the stuff I like and see it in there. But the other thing is I don't know what I would be doing, right, for my stat. I mean, like, I'm so thankful that I can go back and look at all these reports, right?
Right.
And now for a game like I've even considered, I'm watching those you play RJL, right? So I'll throw him out there. I'm watching him do his inside pitch, right? And then I'm seeing other people with the cards, and I'm like, man, this would be fun for like an event to me. Like I could see myself sitting down and immersing myself like in the game, like, or even a series. But wow, and my brain explodes thinking about doing a long-term project with
See,
that.
I'm the
Now,
other way
now
around.
Digital Diamond makes it easy. Right? that brings a whole new
Oh,
element, right? For
that
that.
just
But
when that came out last year, that just well, you
That's
can
got to
tell
be a
that's why I'm
godsend to
crazy. I'm doing these games
yeah.
all the time because I
yep,
don't have to take 4 or 5 hours, which back in the day I used to love to sit down and add up the stats and see a guy early in the year go from a 200 hitter to a 300 hitter, had 2 home runs, and now he has 10. Now he's on pace for this.
yep,
But the older you get, the more you just want to play the game. You know what I'm saying? You're like,
yep.
I just spent 5 hours. I could have played 4 or 5 games instead of adding these stats up. And another thing too, you always said, did I get game 22 or did I skip game 22? And then you got to go back and recalculate, make sure you didn't skip the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I
it's cool
one
because
question.
digital's mixing those together, right? I mean, there's still digital tools that can come on and help and still have that cards and dice feel.
One quick question for Big Clue. He's there. I think there's one of our listeners is in Bangkok right now. That might be Big Clue. If it's Big Clue, I'm going to be there in October. I can meet you in October. I can buy you Singa. Singa's my favorite. Singa's great. You put Singa in soju, it's so smooth. It's like drinking water. I remember I was golfing with some Koreans and they were great. They're like, here. And you know, the soju, the rice wine, they put in those boxes like you got when you were kids. Remember those
Juice boxes.
Hawaiian punch
Yeah.
where you put the straws in the
Yeah.
little the cardboard boxes. Well, that's how soju happens. Is you put that in there, but you take a bottle of Singa and you pour it in the soju, the rice wine, and it makes it taste like as smooth as water, but it is friggin' powerful. And I hate golf. I really do. So
Maybe that's
I
your
was-
next sport. Maybe that's your next project.
yeah, well, I was golfing with these Koreans, and I started. You know how they make golf courses? 1 to 9 goes one way, 10 to 18 goes the other. I'm hitting the ball on the other thing, going, oh, yeah, look at that, and I started aiming for the golf carts. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for the power of singing and soju. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh. And I start trying to hit that. And I was going after the wrong pins, and people were like putting. And I'm like aiming towards those pins. I'm like, oh, I don't care. And I'm like, hey. And the Koreans are like, hey, this is great. They keep giving me more. I remember that. I almost fell because they had this thing. And then the best part was they made me drive. They made me drive the golf cart. So I don't know any golf etiquette. So I was like turfing the green. I drove all over the green and I'm like, and I'm pushing the gas and it's going broop, 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 like that. And I'm looking back and it's kicking up these huge chunks of the green. And I'm like, I don't know if this is good. They're like, oh, you okay? You're all right. You're okay. And I'm like, oh my God. So Big Clue, are you on?
He says he's on the do not fly list, but he's saying we should meet in Pittsburgh next year for a baseball.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
That's easy. That's easy. Yeah, that's easy. That's it'll be on me. It'll be on me. What I do is
Oh, don't say that around this crew, buddy. You better take it up.
Hey, we're all meeting. Maybe that's where we're going to have the first ever convention is Pittsburgh next year.
That'd be
Yeah,
all
we
right.
should. Because when I go back, I do all my sports when I go back. I mean, goddamn, I have cricket here. And I'm sorry, MV. I'm sorry. MV, can you please cover your ears when I say please?
We don't.
For the
So
love
Chris,
of God, cricket
Chris,
sucks.
we don't apologize to MV on here, so don't worry about that. Just
No, in fact,
have
just
at
the
it.
opposite.
Yeah,
Cricket
exactly,
sucks.
Steve. Exactly.
Well, I have to apologize in case any of my Pakistani friends ever hear this.
Okay.
Cricket, goddamn, cricket is like, come on. You run in a straight line. At least in baseball, they go, oh, well, look at baseball. Bullshit. Baseball has curves. Like you run and you turn. Okay? Cricket, you don't. It's a straight line back and forth for 4 hours, and that's the short version. 5 days for the regular version. 5 days of back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Oh, well, we could speed this game up and make it 2 hours and actually make it fun. If cricket were more fun, it's great. It's great. But what they do is they do one goddamn ball. One. So that means when you hit it out into the fans, they have to go get it, throw it back in, throw it all the way back in, throw it back to the pitcher, blah, blah, blah. And then the guy runs, throws, and nothing happens. And what do? They switch pitchers, so it goes all the way to the other side, and you're like, oh my God, what the hell?
Well, I have an idea to speed up cricket, and I used to watch it. I mean, it's an interesting. It does take skill, but what if they put landmines randomly on the
I
pitch?
love it.
Yeah,
I said that they should have umpires. If they had each referee with 6 balls, and once they hit it out, you just, okay, here it is. They just throw it away. Like if they hit a 4 or a 6, you just give them a new ball. Oh, but we have to make sure that that's the elegance of the bullshit. There's nobody watching these games. You look at these games on TV, they're empty seats everywhere. Empty everywhere. And so, oh, this is the biggest match in history. And there's nobody there. There's like nobody there.
I admire the skill of cricket. Again, I used to watch it all the time. I was working and as a student at Penn State, but lately, so I've been like, going through Downton Abbey again, and there's one episode where they're playing cricket, and I'm like, okay, I still don't get it. So, respect to the sport, but yeah, I couldn't watch it. But I think about the landmines idea. Our Red Sox fan is in here.
Wow, good to see you. Al, good to see you.
He said that would do an explosive concussion. Yeah, but it would bring up attendance. Maybe we could do it for Oakland A's baseball next year. Landmines in the outfield. I mean, they're going to be going to Vegas. No, they're not going to Vegas till 2025. But I think they're playing their games. There was some talk about San Francisco. I don't know. The Bucks, if we suck again next year, Chris, what do you think?
That wouldn't be a bad idea, Beatles. It'd be a way to demolition the stadium all at one time, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Steve's taking off, guys.
I'm going to say bye. This has been a blast. Got to head back to my day job.
Yeah, we're
I am going to look into StreamYard because I do like the idea of having this sports sim fireside chat, whatever we're going to call it, a couple times a month.
Yeah.
Happy
Al,
to get
you're
involved
invited too. Floated the idea of maybe doing and I know you do a lot of this in the same channel. We thought it'd be a lot of fun to maybe just get together twice a month, have a chinwag about this with a bunch of creators and anybody that sort of wants to come on. So, man, you're always welcome. And I know that you've been wanting to get Steve on your channel. I don't know if you've ever gone on yet, but
I am in Lehigh, Utah, just south of Salt Lake.
Oh, all right. Damn it. I saw Detroit
near Anthony.
I could go up in 4 hours.
Hey, look, I'm a born and raised Michigan guy, but and then went to college at the University of New Mexico, stayed there 37 years. We've relocated, so I've been in Utah almost 3 years now. But yeah, all my heart is with Michigan sports.
Because I was going to say, I go out, the best thing in sports to do, easily the best thing is the NBA Summer League. My God.
Oh, yeah, Vegas and here, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my God. It's so fun. And then you sit down and some guy sits next to you. Like behind me was Jeremy Jones, who played a national title game from Gonzaga. And he plays right now. He's a starter in Japan for Nagoya, the Eagles, just like their baseball team. And he's sitting back there. And I said, you won a national title. You're a starter and you don't even get to sniff the court. And he's like, nope. Yeah, you have to be that good. And I'm like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
And then the guy next to me, he was a principal for 20 years in LA, Brian Thomas. He played in the ABA and the NBA, and we made fun of Cotton Fitzsimmons for about 20 minutes in his suits, pink suits with, I said, I'm going to wear a chain around my neck with a 0-2 left because his picture's 2 seconds left when he won a division title with Kansas City. And he's wearing this pink suit that like radiates through the TV screen. So he said I wanted to put a gold chain around my neck with a big 0-2 clock right here, like they showed on TV. But he was a principal. We talked about that for 20 years being in schools. And it's like, oh, my God, this is great. And then the beer only cost $6. And I'm like, this is great. And then the pretzel cost another $3. I'm like, but it was stale. It was stale. I'm like, what the hell,
Well, guys, Christopher, I want to thank you, and I know that me.
Oh, I do too. As I head out, I do have to run.
So Steve's taking off. Yeah, I think we've hit a good stopping point because I know you have tons and tons of tales. And I was looking at the when I came back upstairs, looking at some of the comments, and I've got to go back and check this because Aaron going off about he said something about uncensored, whatever, blah blah blah. So got to check it. But so
do you have a last question? Do you have any burning thing about any famous, any whatever, anything about here? We could go last question for anybody in the chat, or Dwayne, if you have
Yeah,
any
go for
sort
it,
of
guys.
question.
Go for it. Got about 10 minutes. So, yeah, go ahead. Anybody have any questions? Come on, somebody's got to have questions.
I wish I had. I wish somebody, even if they ask me, like, I don't know, how much water do I have left?
Either that or we do a lightning round here of questions. Boo boo.
Yeah, that'd be great. I could do a quick answer. MV,
yeah.
I do like cricket. MV, I do go to 2020 crickets here in Pakistan, but it's tough. All right, here MV wants to know about Axis football. Axis football is going to be one of the wild cards in sports simulations. It's going under the radar, but when I'm looking at it, it has the potential to be like, where the hell did this come from? And it has a very, it could go either way. It could be the world's suckiest game, or it could be really good. So it's got that. It's under the radar, but I think this is the year, though. If it stinks this year, Axis football's done. If it's great this year, people will be like, oh my God, let's customize this and use it as our graphical sim. Because there's two types of sims, you know that. There's statistical sims and graphical sims. Statistical sims is your action PCs, your pro strategy footballs, your out of the park baseballs.
Right.
When they take the stats, they have a play, and then they translate the play to the graphics, and the graphics describe it. A graphical sim is where you put the ratings and the players, and the laws of physics then determine the outcome.
I'm thinking MLB The Show as you're mentioning this, perhaps.
MLB The Show, like Axis football would be one.
Super Mega Baseball, even, really.
Super Mega Baseball, the old NCAA footballs.
Yep.
Stuff like that would be MVP Baseball 05. There we go. That's a sim that's all on physics.
Here's a big one from Midlife Crisis for you, since we're winding down. And this is a great question from Midlife Crisis. Stealing from Ron and Dave, if you could attend one sporting event in history, even if it's something you actually attended, what would it be, Chris?
All right, 10 years ago, I would have said the Immaculate Reception game. But if you look on YouTube, they actually have the last 10 minutes. And that's one thing you find out that John Madden was a big liar, because you see him signal touchdown. You see him do everything that they said that they didn't do, and they did it. And even the announcers were like, okay, well, they called up. It's all touchdown. They called up the Art McNally. He said, yes, it's a touchdown. They didn't call anything about security or whatever. It was so stupid. But anyway, if I had to attend one sporting event, I mean, there's two. The obvious answer is there were two kids playing stickball on November 22nd, 1963, behind a grassy knoll. I would attend that event so I could see what the hell happened.
Yeah, right.
And I would have a camera with me, and then I would go into the future and sell that to the Smithsonian and retire right now.
Then you could really afford to foot everybody's bill for next year's possible convention, right?
Yeah, I'd love it. We'd all get home plate seats, and then cousin Ken Castro, we'd be able to pay his bail too when he gets thrown out.
Oh, and he's going to need it. Guys, I hate to cut this short. Christopher, we got to do this again, and I've got to make sure that maybe it's got to be a weekend thing or something, because of weekdays. But my huge thanks, Christopher. And I don't know whether you got into any of the tales that you had told me. And if you did, I'm sure the community enjoyed it. If not, we got to do this again.
I have to hurry up and answer the question real quick. And it is the obvious 1980 USA-USSR hockey game.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a hockey fan, but I think that would be that. I forget what my choice was, because I answered that in their chat, but that would be something to see, certainly.
Yeah. The second one on my list, and you'll be very shocked, is 1972 when we lost to the Russians in basketball, because there was a point in which the Russian coach said the timeout button wasn't working. And as soon as they said that wasn't, I would have gone down and started pressing that. And if that light bulb went on, there goes all the myth, there goes all this stuff, and we win the protest, and we blah, 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 and get the gold medal. So anyway, sorry about that. So go
Guys,
ahead.
oh no, no apologies, guys. I hope you enjoyed this time with Christopher. There's so much more. Check out his channel. I just want to, Dwayne, while I have you on here, what do you have coming up today?
I'll probably do some baseball here in the evening.
Okay,
Yep.
looking forward to it. And Chris, when's gonna be the next thing coming up on your channel?
When I get up in the morning, probably about 10 o'clock here, 1 a.m. For the late
Okay.
nighters.
Well,
I
right.
got the Cyro 329 all-time NFL league. So I was telling Steve earlier, he said, how would a league look like when he makes that thing? That would be a weekend league and Saturday, Sunday league where I do 3-4 games, Saturday, Sunday. And then what I do is I broadcast every playoff game because you can do that in F-ball and baseball.
Sure, right.
So that's what's coming up. And then your league is coming up with Little League Baseball. I got the
Yay!
semis coming up and then the finals. And then I told him, well, you were gone. When we finish a Creators Cup, I'm going to just tell you. So I'm sorry for taking a surprise. I'm going to do the Japan League Championship from 2010. I did the series season replay, and it came down to Chinichi and the Cebu Lions. And you're going to hear all the chanting, all the
Oh, that's
drums,
gonna be epic.
all the everything, the
Yeah.
saxophones, the voices. And I took away all the swear words, so none of my chants are in there.
Oh, damn
And,
it.
it's going to be the best 7 games. Now, I don't know if it goes 7 because it could go 8 or 9. Remember, it's the best of 7, but it can go 9 because if it goes 12 innings, it's a tie. And it's a first team to win 4 games. So you can go 12 games if they all go 12 innings and they tie, you just alternate home and away. So it's a best of 7 though. And we'll see. It could be a sweep and easy, or it could be really awesome. There's going to be a lot of chanting and a lot of great stuff, though.
Looking forward.
What
All
game
right,
engine is
guys.
that, Chris?
It is Pro Baseball Spirits 2010.
Looking forward, man.
That'll
Thank
be
you
fun.
guys for everything. It's been a blast. And again, just to remind you really quickly, this is not about building my channel. I'm hoping that others, Dwayne, you're the other content creator here. I mean, Bernie left, a lot of other guys left, but Dwayne, maybe you'll think about doing this on your channel, getting
Yeah, because
having some
like I
people
told
over.
you, I pay for stream. I can have up to 9 other people in there.
Oh, well, that means you're posh then. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. Let's do this again real soon. And Christopher, again, my friend, I can't thank you enough. This is like the best ever broadcast on this channel, and it's all thanks to you and also to these guys in this chat. So, with that, gents, I'll be back this afternoon with some, no surprise, baseball, and then Dwayne tonight with some baseball. Robert will have baseball. So thank you, everybody. And Midlife Crisis, you're welcome. MV, everybody, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I got a book. Chris, be good, man. And let's keep in touch, brother. And let's do this again and have fun. And even on your channel, it'll be great because you know how we late nighters are on my channel. So we'll come hang out at your house. It'll all be good. All right.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. But it would be like on a Friday night or Saturday night because it would be morning for me. So it'd be like 8, 9 in the morning here. I'd be like, hey, Dwayne, did you bring the pseudo beer? Because they got none in this alcohol-free country. Except that Murray beer here. That Murray beer. Murree. There we go. Green cans.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we'll catch you a little bit later. Big Clue, thanks for coming in. Everybody, you guys are awesome. Your family. We have one hell of a community. All right. Till a little bit later around. See you around the batting cage, guys. Be good. We're going to go ahead and end it here. Chris, thank you.
Have a great night.
All right, buddy.